Hello, everyone. Happy Whiskey Wednesday, episode 61 of the Bourbon MBS podcast. We're going to have our buddy Spencer Lappin back on for the fifth time, he thinks. Steve says sixth, but
never enough.
I'm not sure.
Enough.
Yeah, but this is going to be a really great one. We're going to be talking about springtime and keeping things fresh. Right, Steve?
That's right.
All right. And then we'll get into the whiskey and the cigars like we always do, and we hope you enjoy it. As Steve is sharing it, and I'm going to be sharing it here soon, we encourage you to do as well. Please share it, and please like it on the Facebook.
On the Facebooks.
Yeah.
Good, yeah.
Yep, and tell a friend tonight. And we're getting into that weather, springtime, that's why we're talking about that tonight. So it's about that time you can go outside, watch us on your wonderful Whiskey Wednesday evening, and enjoy some sunlight and a nice cigar and a drink. So enjoy.
What's everyone smoking tonight is my question, because it is definitely warm enough to smoke. So if you're on the conversation, let me know.
Oh, hi.
There you go. Am I on?
I don't know.
This is a weird format here.
What's the format?
It's not doing the same thing. There we go.
There you go.
Got it.
But yeah, so we're going to be smoking the Sobremesa by Steve Saka, provided by the Tinderbox, and then the AJ Fernandez H. Upmann with H. Upmann and Altadis USA. We're going to be trying an interesting bourbon called Burning Chair coming out of California, but we'll get into some details about that. But
so is it, we just pregame right now, or is the
Yes.
podcast started?
no,
This is the podcast.
You guys are episode 61. You really nailed the intro. This was
yeah. Well, the funny part is what normally happens is I'm good on this, and then we do the whole main intro with the in the audio, and I screw everything up. So
it always catches me off guard when I don't hear the music.
You
I'm like,
may hit a
is
mag
it 1, 2,
guitar
3, go, or is it on to
and go.
But without the music, like I'd like that. Like, do you have like a ringtone or anything like that? You can
no,
Yeah, I got you.
It's just,
There you go.
we. He actually does have the sound effect there.
Does that make you feel better?
Can you do it? Can you do it on 2-speed?
On
2-speed. I like to speed up a little bit.
Oh, you do? Let me see what I can do here at the DJ.
It really kind of, yeah.
He listens to our podcast sped up. Did you know that?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's on like 5 times or whatever, how fast it'll go.
2. And still, if I could do it on 3, I would.
Oh, sweetheart.
It actually flows really well on 2.
Perfect.
That is not what I'm
Are
using.
you ready?
You ready? All right.
Now that Spencer's comfortable.
Yeah.
You ready there?
Yep. Hello, everyone, and happy Whiskey Wednesday. I'm Jake Sanders along with Steve Crane, and we make up the Bourbon MBS podcast. Cheers.
Cheers. Spencer?
Cheers.
Spencer. We have our good buddy back on, Spencer Lappin. Thank you for being on. How's it going?
It's a beautiful day, man. I'm a happy man.
Yeah.
Gorgeous spring weather. Doing great, man.
We were just discussing that we don't really know whether it's 5 or 6 times that Spencer has been on, but this is either the 5 or 6th time, and it's amazing every time. Your great questions. Last time you were on was with Phil, right?
No, I think there was a time.
He was on after that, yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I forget about that. But
That was the 5th time.
yeah, and
You
Steve.
guys broke this or anything? There we
No,
go.
there you go. Steve's lighting a cigar, but welcome everyone. If this is your first time tuning in, we talk about whiskey, we talk about cigars, and a little bit of life topic, mostly life topics that we have. And tonight is no different. We are talking about springtime, keeping things fresh. And it's pretty warm now. We're finally getting into springtime at the beginning of April here in Midwest and Central Ohio. So we're happy to sit out finally, have a cigar, drink some whiskey with good friends and family, and enjoy ourselves. So, yeah.
It is really nice.
It is really nice.
We hit over 60 today here in Columbus, Ohio. So that's always nice.
Yeah. And so, like I said, we do a whiskey, we do cigars. So, we're drinking Burning Chair coming out of California, and that is American Canyon, California. I've never been in California, so I don't know if that's like abbreviated place, or not abbreviated, but made up place or not.
It's California.
Yeah, you never know. I don't know if it's like one of those things where everyone's like Ohio Valley.
So this one's not made in Indiana.
Well, we'll get into that.
All right.
Our audio messed up?
No.
Okay. That's the interesting part. So we'll get into that a little bit, Spencer. But yeah, so we're doing the Brain Chair coming out of California. We're also doing the Sobremesa by Steve Saka, provided by Tinderbox at Easton. Thank you very much for your wonderful sponsor. Thank you, Altadis Cigars, for providing the H. Upmann and your sponsorship with the AJ Fernandez H. Upmann Nicaragua. And thank you, BS Cigar Company, Brian and Steve. You make an amazing cigar. I have a small Gold Robusto sitting here on the table, as we normally do, and I can't wait to light it up after.
Get those while you can, because we're going to be about 4 weeks out until we get some of those new BS Golds back in.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
I'm itching my arm over here.
I know. Well, we're running out of the little ones because they're smaller and everyone's smoking 2 instead of 1 now. So they're going fast.
It's good to have demand, though, right? I mean, it means you're doing something.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
It just really slowed it down when we had to reject 1,000 BS Gold Toros.
Yeah.
We had some construction issues on those, so.
They're built too well.
No. In fact, it's odd that you would say that. I don't know why you rejected if they were built too well. Not well enough, surprisingly, is why they were rejected.
Makes more sense.
Doesn't it?
Yeah.
Doesn't it? So, but yeah, we're Sobremesa. I do enjoy. I think this is going to pair well. I still have some of this. What did I bring?
Was David Nicholson Reserve?
David Nicholson Reserve is what I've got in my glass from before the podcast.
That's a good one, and we've been meaning to do it.
Yeah.
We've been meaning to do it, and we're probably going to do it soon. But
I won't talk about it then.
It's a great one, though.
No, stop.
It's great.
It's too fucking much. You ruined it.
How's it going, Spence?
It's going good, man. So this place, haven't been to the new house. It's a great house,
New
by the
studio,
way.
yeah.
New studio, excuse me. But it's got a lot of the good juju from the other place, man. It feels familiar but brand new. Kind of like the background. It was freaked me out a little bit watching you guys on a different set, kind of just randomly a few weeks ago. How many times have you guys been in this new garage?
It's been 4 weeks, 5,
4 or 5.
4 or 5 weeks. Yeah.
Feel different? Feel the same?
It's starting to feel like home, I'd say.
The first one was weird.
It was weird. Well, it was rushed because the first one we were like moving stuff over here before the actual podcast.
Yeah.
So it was like finishing everything. Like there was stuff, the table and everything, like hours before. Like all this was still over at the other garage. So it was very rushed, and we just went right into it. But since then, I think it's kind of calmed down a little bit.
Yeah, I got used to it after the second one.
It's got a good feel, man.
Mm-hmm.
It does. I know you'll get into the top a little bit, but new beginnings, fresh start, spring, all that good stuff.
Yeah.
It definitely feels like a new start for me in the new place, and it's got a good feel to it, man. Sun coming in, I like it, man. I like it a lot.
Nice. Nice.
It's good, and we're lucky to even be able to have the garage door open tonight and not freeze our asses off.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, it's very nice. What'd you guys think of last week? I know Spencer, you said you listened to it. I thought we had a good podcast. I want to thank again Dino for coming over.
Yeah, Dino Tripodis from Whiskey Business Podcast. Thank you, and his producer John. It was amazing meeting you guys, and we can't wait to be on Whiskey Business.
Yeah, we'll definitely let everyone know when we're going to be on there.
For sure.
It's great that you guys like podcast support another podcast. I think that's
Yeah.
kind of how you can really grow by you share their people, they share your people,
Yeah.
and people kind of want to listen to similar type of stuff. So I think it'll be good for everybody.
There's a lot of learning too. It was interesting because for those of you, again, Whiskey Business Podcast is one to check out with Dino. And it's interesting because he's got all this experience on the radio side. He's done some podcast stuff, but now they're trying to get into YouTube. And then they don't do Facebook Live. A lot of podcasts are, I've noticed, at least in the cigar world. So if you guys are out there in the cigar world, I've seen a lot more doing Facebook Live since
They're taking notice.
and I'm not
They're
saying
taking notice,
they
man.
may not have found us, but other people are doing it. We're doing it. We kind of came across it as like, I mean, Spencer, you were a part of it. We didn't start doing Facebook Live. Now they're doing it. So then you got guys that are 20 plus years in the media business asking us, like, so how are you guys doing what you're doing? Like, they're taking note and everything because they're trying to go across all the channels as well.
Yeah.
And, talking numbers with them on how many, like, downloads they have. It was a good number, don't get me wrong, but I guess it was less than what I thought because we don't know because we've now we're getting like 2,000 to 4,000 Facebook views on our videos, and that has kept our podcast numbers down. So it's just interesting to learn from other people. So not only is it like getting more podcasts out there to people listening or watching, it's the fact that, everyone's kind of learning together.
Yeah, and it was really weird too, like, not to dig too much into it, but it was interesting to have a record number of shares and then not have a record number of views, right? You know what I mean? So it's interesting. Like, we've never had even close to what we had in shares last week.
Right.
And then
14 million shares.
You're the king of over exaggeration on the shares and the likes.
That's a high number.
Yeah.
So, different people view it different ways. Like, I happen to listen to it kind of on Fridays.
Yeah.
A lot of people do it on, Facebook and things like that. So more ways you can get out to people, put it on everything, and people are going to listen to whatever's most convenient for them.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I think the shares help out with the live, and then I think with Facebook and Instagram and everything else, they talk about like the algorithms of how things show up on people's pages and what people are doing at different times. So I mean, if you're not, part of it too is that you got to think about this. Is that we've done, and we were talking with Spencer before because he's been on episodes. Instead of doing a 3-hour podcast, one of the things that I've noticed, if you think about it, going 3 hours on Facebook Live, you're going to most likely get more people viewing because they're going on Facebook between 9 and 10. So we have, basically another third of time where we're going live. So people that are going on Facebook for that extra hour, they're actually seeing us still as a live video. So that might have something to do with it too. So since we're cutting it at 2 to 2:15, it probably is getting less views. So that's the importance of sharing.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, so as we say that, we encourage you to like it. Please leave a 5-star review on our audio listeners that are listening, and please share it at least with one friend. Word of mouth. I think a lot of people neglect a word of mouth sense when you're dealing with business or what you like to do and what you're trying to get out there. And there's a lot to be said for people that are just talking about stuff like this and talking about stuff that they enjoy and like. But
yeah, if you think of someone that actually would enjoy it with you, or to talk about, or something they would enjoy, definitely it doesn't have to be a Facebook share. It's just something that you send them a text, talk to them about, hey, I'm listening to this podcast. It helps us out, helps everyone out. And then Kylie Boudreau is on. Yeah, you can't give it 0 stars. I don't think you can give it 1. I think on most formats, but we appreciate what we know what's in your heart. No, 5 out of 5 is good.
So we live by this daycare center, and they post the amount of stars and said 3 stars. So I drove by. I go, that's pretty good. I happened to be with my mom. She's like, 3 stars is not very good. 3
out of 1.
Not want to be a 3-star daycare center.
3 out of 5 or 3 out of 3?
We do not know, but she was convinced that 3 was not good.
There was nothing to be advertised. There's not 3-star scales usually. Like I've heard of 4-star scales, 5, 10 even. 3 is not really.
It wasn't ideal.
7 stars out of 7. Like, what's the?
My future children will not be at that daycare center.
Thankfully, because of your mom. Because you were thinking that you're living. Hey, this is so convenient. They can walk to this 3-star location.
Cages. They got fences. What else do you need? These kids aren't going anywhere.
So whiskey.
Until you get shut down because they dropped it 2 stars.
Right.
All right, so let me get a glass of that.
Yeah.
The Burning Chair.
The Burning Chair.
How'd you pick this one?
Well, Steve's been talking about it, and I went to not really our local store, but kind of a store in Columbus, downtown Columbus. And it's an interesting bottle because looking right at it, it almost looks like a rum bottle. It's kind of square, spherical, and it's covered in black. And I think it looks like almost, if you've never seen the Diplomatico rum or whatever, that's what it looks like. And it's interesting because it has a glass cork. It's not a true wooden cork or anything like that. It's glass. And actually, for our audio listeners, you can hear that. That's the actual cork.
And it's interesting because it does fit well, but it's not like a normal cork at all. Like
it's got a little piece of rubber.
Does the cork matter?
No, it's just it's definitely a different feel. As long as it'll seal on there. But I will say that if you have an open bottle of whiskey, and you recork it and it sits, that's something we talk about, is if it sits after 2-3 months or longer, I want to say some of it does evaporate a little bit, or there's a little bit of more airflow. With this being rubber and glass, there may not be any airflow.
Yeah.
So for better or worse, it may not be any different when you come back to it in 6 months if it's completely sealed like that.
You guys ever buy the mini bottles? Like the tasters, the old ones, the ones kind of with the red tabs on them, things like that.
Yeah.
Do you notice any difference in those versus in the bigger bottles? Just taste wise?
No, not really. Like pints, just like pint.
I'm talking like the really little ones.
Oh, the 50 milliliter guys. No, the last time
Hotel bars, mini bars.
Yeah, like when you're on a plane to the DR.
But some liquor stores will have those, and they'll have them from like the 70s, 80s, things like
they're awesome.
that, and kind of give them away and things like that.
Yeah, they're awesome. No, I don't. Last time I have a mini bottle of Four Roses single barrel, and I have a mini bottle of Buffalo Trace, just regular Buffalo Trace. And I've never done a side by side, but when I tasted it, I was kind of like, yep, I remember that's what it was.
But you won't get any age on that because doubtfully will you just take a sip out of that and then cork that. And by that, normally it's a screw top.
Do you guys do any trades in the bourbon world at all?
I don't. I know it's very, very rampant.
Do you ever get some tasters and things like that? Do people do that?
Yeah, the little sample bottles and stuff. Yeah, they're a blast. Last time when I was down in Kentucky and saw Matt Stiles, he gave me a bunch of different samples, and it was awesome because he was, saying take as many as you'd like and everything like that. And once you drink the samples, you get to have them, so then you can kind of pay it forward and such like that. But it's really fun. Burning Chair, it comes out of American Canyon, California. It's done by Dave Finney. That's Phinney. He's been big in kind of the wine world in California, but he's introducing himself into whiskey now. This came out not too long ago, and it's kind of hitting the shelves here in Ohio. And Steve's been hearing about it from one of our good friends, Chuck, and that's pretty much why.
Chuck Taylor.
Yeah, that's pretty much why
Different, not the shoe guy.
Yeah.
No, not the shoe guy.
A different guy.
Yeah, not that guy either.
But that's pretty much why I picked it up, and I know that Steve's been wanting to try it. And I've been interested too, because Chuck was like, this rivals, like, if I had to pick something under like Blanton's and stuff that he normally likes, this is what he would pick.
I haven't even taken a sip of this yet.
But it's pretty interesting. So it's coming out of Savage and Cook Distillery, again in American Canyon, California. And it's funny because Spencer mentioned the fact that this doesn't come from Indiana or Kentucky. Well, you're wrong, because it actually does. It's sourced. It's at least 4 years old. It's coming out of Indiana, Kentucky, and Tennessee. So if I had to guess where it was coming out of is MGP, Heaven Hill, and maybe Jack Daniels. But
when it says all of those, how does that work? I mean, what the fuck? I mean, like,
where's that? Take it down a notch.
No.
Okay, go ahead. We'll get there.
No, I'm saying like you say 3 distilleries. It's 3 states.
3 states.
So are they blending these things? Is that what's going on?
You're exactly right, Steve.
Okay.
Yeah. So what they're doing is getting the smallest. So when I say at least 4 years old, this may be something that's 8 years old, but the youngest barrel that's in this blend is 4 years.
Right.
And then when it says Indiana and Kentucky and Tennessee, I'm just guessing that's where it's coming out of, because Heaven Hill is known for outsourcing a lot. Obviously, we've talked about MGP a ton, but we haven't talked about Tennessee very much, and there's not very many Tennessee whiskeys out there. There's maybe 2 that have a license that say you can label your stuff Tennessee whiskey.
Yeah.
A few podcasts ago, I think we did the Jack.
Yep.
I'm assuming all that comes from Tennessee?
Jack Daniels is one of the 2 distilleries that is allowed to call it, under law, Tennessee whiskey.
So it's interesting that you mentioned this guy's into wine. I was going to say this almost has the first taste of like a port, that kind of sweetness to it. I don't know if that's what he was going for or not, but I think it's a little sweet at the beginning, and then I get the heat at the end.
Yeah.
But the first one I had, it was just different. It's grown on me. I kind of like it. I kind of dig it.
It's pretty interesting, and I love the fact that you kind of pulled that out of there, because he has a rye, Dave Finney and Savage and Cook Distillery. They have a rye, and then they have a bourbon, and then they have American whiskey.
I know the rye is called Lip Service.
Yeah.
But I don't know about the other one. It is.
And then the American whiskey is obviously going to be not not 51% corn and different blends like that.
Right.
So what Spencer said though with the wine, all his bottles that he does and all the blends that he does are finished in his own Cabernet Sauvignon. Am I pronouncing that right?
Yeah, Cabernet Sauvignon.
I'm not a big wine guy, but they're all finished in those barrels. So what he'll do is grab all these barrels from 3 different distilleries, I suppose, and blend it, and then finish it in Cabernet Sauvignon barrels. So
that is interesting. I agree. I mean, it's very smooth. It was funny because I think, was it before we started recording or not? I don't recall, at least on the audio. But it was like you made a comment that you're like, nope, don't add water, because you put a little water in it, and I get that because it actually already tastes like you may have already put a little water in it, because I'm not saying it's watered down, but that smooth, like like you said, no heat, no burn, especially up front. It's.
So what's the proof on it?
it's 44%, so 88 proof.
Okay.
And like Steve said, right before we started, I added water to it, and it completely took away the creaminess and the mellowness that's coming out of there, and the rich cinnamon notes and the brown sugar notes. It took all that out of there, and it just left alcohol, and it really messed it up.
Really?
Yeah. But initially,
not what I expect.
Initially off the nose, it was funny because listening to Spencer, like you smelled it and tasted it right off the bat before I even did, and you said, "Oh, that's interesting." And you're right, it is really interesting. And this almost rivals, and I dare to say, this almost rivals the smell of Elijah Craig 18 year. So having a low year barrel, or like a young barrel, rivaling a 18-year-old single barrel that's been on the shelves for years.
Do you remember this stuff, or do you write this stuff down?
I remember it because I'm insane when it comes to bourbon.
I mean, that's how like Psalms operate, right? They have to like remember when they had that vineyard, what year it was, where the grapes were from. Some people write it down, but they have to be able to say this tastes like this bottle from this region.
Right.
Well, I pick out weird different notes.
If
like
you say plum, I would swear to God.
I'm searching.
No, but I will say marshmallow with this.
I'll allow it.
I'll say roasted marshmallow with this because it's got that creaminess in it that I don't really know. It's toasted something, so I don't know how you guys want to interpret it, but that's how I interpret it. But definitely
Marshmallow. Huh?
Yeah, marshmallow, brown sugar, a little bit of cinnamon.
I think the cinnamon I can get
At the
tail.
end, yeah.
Yeah.
But no, I like it. It's good. It's kind of an interesting bottle though, because I don't even know. It looks like a black and white picture from like the Hudson Hornet in a crash or something.
Well, I thought when it's called the Burning Chair, and I thought for a while when Chuck was telling me about it, it's like Burning Man.
Okay.
I thought it was Burning Man, and then like the picture of it, I thought was Burning Man, and it's the Burning Chair, which is less powerful, but.
Would you ever go to Burning Man?
Probably not. You? Probably.
I've been going for the past 15 years solid. So, you know what? I think in my heyday, maybe with a group of people that I trust.
Yeah.
But,
like the gentleman's group.
Yes, real gentlemen.
Oh, not the one I'm talking about. All right. Yeah.
What do you think?
I wouldn't go to Burning Man if you're asking. I don't think that it's
I
something.
don't even know what it is.
What does something like this cost? Just out of curiosity.
It's around $50, so it's kind of hard to stray, or kind of hard.
40?
50.
Oh, so Chuck he got it in Indiana for 40, I think.
Okay. Well.
So I didn't know it was 49 here.
Yeah, Ohio retail is around 49 something.
Okay.
So.
I like it because it's different than anything that we've had on the podcast, or most things that I would order on my own. So if I wanted something that doesn't taste like anything I've had, I haven't had anything that tastes like this.
Yeah.
I think it's good. It's something for $50. I wouldn't buy it again.
Yeah.
I didn't buy this one. I mean,
I didn't want to say it.
No, I did.
No, but the $50 bottle I bought last week, I'd buy again. The 1897 Old
Yeah.
Forester, if you were paying attention last week, I think that one was fantastic for the price.
I know, I agree.
And the other, was it David Nicholson?
Yep, Reserve.
Reserve. I mean, for that price, which is less than that, I'd drink that over it. I'm not saying it's bad. I think it's good, and I agree with you, Spencer. I think it's a different taste, and it's very, very smooth. But contrary to what you said, as I'm getting through my first glass, it's not finishing all that well for me.
It's really dry.
Yeah.
It's a dry whiskey, and if you're smoking a cigar with this, it's you're going to be drinking lots of water. At least I know I will later.
How do you determine if you want to add water to it?
Honestly, I just do it anyways, regardless, to see what happens.
You take a sip of it first and then add water?
Yeah. So what I'll do is I'll have, if I'm really tasting something for the first time, I'll take one sip, sit on it for a little bit. I'll take another sip, maybe a little bit bigger sip than I did the first one, because the first one is just acclimating your palate to the alcohol. The second one, you're trying to pick out something, and then by that time, your senses should be used to the alcohol and the flavors at that point.
Yeah.
So then you take another sip, and you can do whatever you want. You can chew it, like kind of swish it around your mouth, get all the flavors that you want. I don't really recommend that because all that I get when I do that is just alcohol. It doesn't matter what proof it is. I try.
If you swish it around?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I normally try to just sit it for like a second and then bring it back. And then after I sit on it, I'll say, do I really, really like it enough to not add water to it? And then I'll sip it a couple more times. But if I don't like it as is, I'll add water to it immediately. But after probably 5 or 6 sips, I'll be like, let's see what happens. And I'll add like a half a, cup of water or a half a cap of water and see what happens to it.
I think though, like we've had this conversation about adding water to like some of the hotter stuff. You know what I mean? Oh, it's 115, whatever. Like you may want to add a little water to it. When you're coming in at 44, you said?
Yeah.
44%. That's not one that just off of that number alone, I'd say, hey, you may want to add a little bit of water to it because it's already at that 80 to 90 proof. And to me, that's not something that I typically would need to add any water to.
Yeah.
Because at that point you're going to be diluting it even further. And I think this tastes like a 80 to 90. I think this is, again, it's definitely different. I don't know. It's
flavorful.
It's flavorful. Dustin says price point and value similar to Bib and Tucker. I liked Bib and Tucker better personally. I thought it was sweeter. I thought it was a little bit more enjoyable. But I could see that as far as like,
Interesting.
I thought it was sweeter than this.
See, I thought Bib and Tucker was like oaky compared to this.
Are you starting to talk a little bit more about how things taste at all? Getting into that?
He's not giving me shit on the plum thing much anymore.
I think plums was bullshit. No, I'm just kidding. As part of.
You do it enough. 61 episodes.
I did it to a point, and I think we kind of quickly went in there because Jake was really training himself, in education and also in habitual practice of drinking bourbon on a regular basis. So it's a frequency and a quality thing. All right.
Some people call that something else, but go ahead.
It's like studying a lot and getting smarter.
So in college, we were studying natural light a lot.
Yeah, exactly. And $2 shots. But I know to that point, we kind of quickly moved into him being more of the whiskey expert and me a little bit more of the cigar expert, which I think was more natural. And I think as we've done this more, and I think, last week's, if you guys haven't listened to last week's out there, that was part of my point was, being actively present. Like while you're doing this, that's something that I want to continue to work on this year is no matter if it's, doing something at work, doing something in the relationship, watching a movie, something, as trivial as that, owning the house and doing stuff around the house, sampling new whiskeys or even like having a cigar that I've smoked before to try to at least, again, not go crazy with it, I don't think, but for me, it's being like in that moment or in the action that I'm doing is to get the most out of it. So there's other times where I just want to have a sip and not really do anything.
Can you watch a movie and not be on your phone?
Yeah. I mean, it's easier if you're actually in the theater.
Right. If you're just at home.
If I'm at home, typically I'm good. If I'm watching like a bit of a movie, like in the morning while I'm waking up, it's all multitasking, which is that's a period of the day that I want to get better at. But for me, if I'm watching TV, it's usually like if I'm decompressing, it's almost I do have, and that's what we talked about being actively present last week. For me, that's something that I told you I had to work on, and that's something that those are moments where I really do have to work on it, because I think I'm not alone in the fact that you come home, and if you're home with, like, say, a significant other, especially, or family, if you have family, and I'm not going to speak for anyone that has kids because I don't have kids, but when you're around a family unit or just one other person or even whatever it might be, it's like that decompression nowadays is TV's on, phone's out because you've been at work all day, so now you're just like on Facebook, on Instagram, on an article that you wanted to read, or whatever it is. You got music playing in another room, you got your TV on in this room, you know what I mean? That's just like everything's going at once, and that's kind of the way that you can decompress. That's where, like, even having a drink now, for me, to your question of, I think I am trying to get more out of it. I still, I can try to train myself like Jake, where you're reaching for plum, you're reaching for whatever it might be as far as what's actually the flavors. I don't think I have the palate for that at this point. It's more of, like I always say, for me it's food flavors. So I can do the sweetness, I can do some apparent things, like we have is it balcones or balcones? Balcones that Brad brought by, and for me it's like that's one where the strong note for me is corn. And that makes sense on certain bourbons and whiskeys, but for this one, it's a single malt. So I think
Is that the Fritos one?
No, it's not the Fritos one, but that was another one where it was just like, for me, it was just all fucking corn.
But what's interesting about it is there's no corn in it.
But I think they actually, I was talking to Brad, as I recall, they do something with the way they char the barrels.
Oh, okay.
So I think that maybe have something to do with it. We should do that one sometime. Yeah. I might actually just save that quarter bottle we have, and we can put that in the house and just have that for one of our weeks. But
what's interesting about this burning chair is I don't get any. You know how I normally talk about like the dark fruits and stuff? I don't get any of that in here.
It dissipates pretty quickly.
Yeah.
The flavor.
Clean finish.
Yeah, it's a clean finish. Like it disappears on the tongue, and I feel it more in my chest afterwards than I do when I actually taste it.
Yes. That's like more like a heartburn burn, though.
Oh, it's definitely heartburn, but it's
it's like acidity.
Could be, yeah.
Yeah. My first initial.
As I pour another glass.
Yeah. My first initial thought with this one was I wasn't gonna like it just because it had a mineral need thing going on with the nose.
Yeah.
But once I got past that roasted marshmallow thing that I was talking about, that really just went along with it. So.
Has anyone out there that's on the live, have you guys had this? The Burning Chair Bourbon Whiskey? If you have, let us know what your thoughts are. If you're on the audio, hit us up. We'll post the pictures. Let us know what you think of this, because it's not a rave review coming from us right now, that's for sure.
No, because it's just.
But again, it's not bad. It's weird.
No, I think
different.
I think it's really good. I think we would be saying something different if this was $30.
I think
it's hard when it's hard when something that it's $50 and it's not knocking your socks off, but it's also not really. It just tastes like other stuff.
You will remember this though.
Yeah, probably because it's in. Yeah, that's a great point though. You will remember it because it's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting. It's good marketing. It's very different on the shelf.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're looking at this, if you guys see this on the shelf, it's interesting because the labels on it are not like typical. They're not square. They're actually kind of they're centered on the creases of the bottle.
Yeah.
So you kind of got this squared off bottle, and you have it where it's it does say Burning Man, so I assume that's the front, right, that you see, or
Yep.
But that it's very tiny on it. It almost looks like the bottle is going to be put on the shelf crooked.
Yeah.
To make sure that you can see the label, and the back label is much the same. It's on a crease. On an angle, so it's different for sure.
Yeah, they definitely went all out with this one though, like different as a marketing standpoint. But
everything about it's memorable. For $50, it's a tough
Maybe it's because they market it from California.
It's a
They
tough
gain it
sell.
over here. In
Could be.
California, it costs $30, and here it doesn't.
Well, and again, I said Indiana. I mean, that's where Chuck said he got it for $40. So I don't know if it's because he got a case of it, or
Yeah, I don't know.
some stores in some states they'll give you a discount if you buy a case.
Yeah, see, that's the
And
thing.
that's not the case in Ohio.
Yeah, like Indiana, you could buy, if you bought like 12 bottles, you may get like a 30 or 40% discount on
Get that on wine in Ohio. You buy 12,
Really?
12 bottles of wine, you get 10%
So you
off.
can't do that with whiskey in Ohio, but you can do it in Indiana. But it's good. I don't know if I'll pay $50 again for it or even have it again, but
Yeah.
if we don't go through it tonight, I'll keep it. And
Yeah.
if we blow through it, then fine.
Yeah, I don't know. But I mean, I will say, just like a brief segue before we get in the cigar. I mean, that's part of it, though. I mean, we're talking about the subject tonight about keeping it fresh. I will say that's something that we do struggle with. That's one of the reasons that this topic kind of came up, is that we're at 61 episodes, and after 60 episodes, trying to smoke something different, trying to drink something different, and have these different conversations for the first part of the podcast, especially, and even into the second part. But to have these, it's like, unless you get into those barrel picks or the state picks, or these one-off bottles,
Yeah.
it's tough to do. I mean, like, just imagine when we get to like episode 120.
Yeah, I know.
Like, I mean, at that point, you're just, I mean, do we have to change format? How do you keep that fresh when it's like, hey, so if you listen to episode 34, we've actually drank this before, but we're drinking it with a new guest, or we're doing, you know what I mean? It's like, there's a lot of...
Or we just start picking shit off the bottom shelf, like Old Crow and...
Do what you
Tin
did
Cup.
with your suicide decanter that you brought in.
Oh, yeah, we do a blend.
I'm just saying,
That'd
that's
be
something
cool.
that, yeah, you come up with your own recipes,
That'd be
where
really
it's like, all right,
cool.
I got 2 parts, what'd you have, Woodford
I'm
Reserve,
game. I'm in it right
and
now.
I got 1 part Eagle Rare, and I got 1 part Burning Share.
Yeah, what did you think about that?
I thought it was good.
Can we talk about that for a second?
Yeah, well, tell everyone what you had.
So it was, my mom talked to me about this decanter that she found in our basement, and it's a glass decanter, but it actually has a wooden cork,
Okay.
which you never see ever. I don't think I've ever heard
It's
even.
a real nice tight cork too.
Yeah, I've never even heard of that.
Trader.
I've just never even heard of that being a thing. And anyways, so she said, do you want this? And I said, yeah, duh. And so I got it, and I got home Friday night and had a Woodford Double Oak bottle, and it was probably like 3/4 the way full. And I think that decanter, I think it's almost a liter, or maybe it is exactly a liter. I don't know. But it's
I don't know, you had it to the brim, I know that.
It's pretty close to a liter, because I put 3/4 of the Woodford Double Oak in there, and it was always halfway full. It was only halfway full.
Okay.
So then I added in the rest of the Elijah Craig Fado pick that they did. And
That's right.
I added that in there. I added a smidge of Wild Turkey Rare Breed, and then a little bit of that.
This is blasphemy. I can't believe you're doing this.
Why?
Double Oak. It's nuts.
What?
Go ahead, man. All right.
Me?
We'll do it for your next
This is
podcast.
unbelievable.
And then what was that one that my dad got us, not Seagrams, but
Oh, Under Armour guy?
yeah, anyways, yeah, that rye. I put the rest of that in there,
Yeah,
but it was a smidge. And then the rest was Eagle Rare.
I like Eagle Rare.
Yeah, and then so...
Do you like it as 1/8 of whatever you're drinking?
I like it by itself for the most part.
I did too!
I like Woodford Double Oak by itself.
But you haven't had it with 8 other things.
No, like, this reminds me of like going, when you first were
At
a kid,
Pizza
going
Hut.
to Pizza Hut and you get a little bit
Call
of
it
everything.
suicide.
Exactly.
Is that what it was called?
Yeah, I don't think you should say that now, probably, but back in the 80s, it was suicide. I got Mountain
Pizza
Dew, I got
versus-
Coca-Cola, I got Mr. Pibb, and root beer.
Root beer, really, you always tasted the root beer in it.
Oh, it's always, yeah.
So how was it? I mean, do you shake it up or do you just kind of let them settle?
No, honestly, I shook it up.
Oh, you did?
Yeah,
I
you
didn't
gotta
see
shake
that.
it up.
Yeah, I shook it up and kind of stirred it around. But then I brought it to the shop, and it had only been sitting for probably 8 hours or so. and then we both tried it. Initially, I think we both said it was pretty dry.
Yeah.
As I think the Wild Turkey rare breed was coming through a little more than what I wanted it to. But it was good, and then
the ingredients like add up to like $400. You know what I mean? It's like if you have $500 worth of bourbon bottles sitting around, just pour them all together.
I got a bathtub.
Once we get that recipe just right, that's it.
I will not recommend that. But,
Yeah.
The day after, though, when it like aired out,
Well, you only had, you know.
I know.
Jesus, yeah. Jake wasn't working, so he was just kind of hanging out in the back watching movies. And I looked back at one point, shit's like 3/4 gone. I'm like, looking, I'm like, there's only one other glass out. Like, whoa.
How do you guys feel on Thursdays after this podcast?
Not as good as Wednesday mornings.
So strong, but not quite strong.
Not quite 110%.
Okay, like a hard 73%.
Yeah, a hard one.
Because I do this, you know, a few times. You guys do this every week.
Yeah.
And it takes me a couple days to get back to normal. I just can't imagine you guys rev up by the time you're calmed down. It starts up again.
But it's not as bad as it.
We've had good weeks and we've had bad. I had a bad week last week and it was not even planned. Again, that's what happens. It depends on the aftermath of the, like when we stop recording is
After hours.
after the podcast.
After the podcast.
But I thought it was good whiskey.
It was good whiskey, absolutely.
So what's the significance of this this crown on the cigar?
I don't know about the crown. So Sobremesa, thank you for segueing into that. We had a visitor, so if you're part of the Bourbon BS podcast social media, if you look at the Tinderbox page, and I think I shared it possibly on the podcast page, I think I did. Steve Saka was in the shop yesterday, just happened to just pop in. He's on his way through town he's from New Hampshire, and he's driving, he said all the way to like Oklahoma City. So he's just doing this tour or whatever he's doing.
Where did he start?
I think New Hampshire.
Damn.
So Steve Saka was with Drew Estate for a long time.
They got the goatee.
Yeah, the larger individual with
Right.
the white goatee now, bald head. He was with Drew Estate for a long time. He was a big player for Drew Estate as they developed beyond the acid line. So he is the originator of the Liga Privada number 9. Basically, the Liga Privada line in general was Steve Saka. So he was kind of the mastermind behind a lot of the blends as they developed that even further beyond the infused stuff. So he had parted ways. He had a non-compete, to my knowledge, after he had left, right before Swisher had acquired Drew Estate. So I think, I can only imagine that they had kind of had talks like, this is where we're headed, and it's time for him, and then also Nicholas Melillo, who was also a big player at Drew Estate. They both basically parted ways from Drew Estate and went on and did their own things. Now, Steve Saka was with JR Cigars for a while. I think it was for a couple years, maybe longer, as he got into this, went through the non-compete, and then now you're 3 years into his business. Barton Tobacco and Trust is the actual name of it, and I don't think it's on this one at all, as far as the logo with the D with the two like little T's on the left side of the uppercase D is kind of their logo.
Oh, okay.
But so they came out with a couple cigars. This was one of them. First time Steve Saka was at the IPCPR, which is a big international premium cigar and pipe retailer trade show.
Where's that at?
It's held in different places. Right now it's in a stint of being back in Las Vegas for I think 5 years straight. So it's once a year.
Vegas knows how to have a show.
They do, and it's interesting though, like even Vegas is changing with the cigar smoking, because like we were in the Sands convention or whatever they call Expo Center, which
So you weren't at the actual convention center?
No, we were, so the Venetian has the Sands Expo Center attached or part of the whole complex, which is an ode to Sands Casino from back in the day, right? But you could only smoke in that big room But as soon as you hit the hallway, as soon as you leave there, you had to put your cigars out. They had these big ashtrays that you had to put your cigars.
Is that just for you all, or is that for everybody?
You can't
smoke. I was in
smoke.
Vegas a few weeks ago. You can smoke in the casinos.
You can smoke on the casino floor. You cannot smoke in the common areas like hallways.
Really?
Yeah. And even, I'm telling you, like when we were out there for the trade show,
you can drink in the hallways, I think.
Yeah, 2 or 3 you can drink everywhere. But yeah, you can't even, like we were sitting down at some of the little like the digital slot machines.
Cabanas.
No, digital slot machine little bars where they had like these little crystal ashtrays. And we were about to light up a cigar, and the bartender came over and was like, "Oh, cigarettes only, not cigars." So I mean, it's definitely changing even out in Vegas.
What?
Yeah, it was. We had to walk forever to find a place to smoke cigars.
Cigarettes
you can smoke
only.
You can smoke on the floor, if you're gambling. But even there, like I'm telling you, we went. So Big Rob.
Did you vape anywhere?
I didn't ask. I didn't bring my jewel. But we had an experience. We're going back now. 8 years ago, it was my 30th birthday, and the first time we sat down at the casino where we were doing roulette, and we all lit up cigars. The pit boss actually came over. This was at O'Shea's, which is not there anymore. But the boss,
Nick Lushes.
O'Shea. But they said, the pit boss came over and really like kind of turned off Big Rob to the whole experience, my buddy, because it was his first time. We're smoking cigars. He's like, "Are you guys going to be here long?" We're like, "Yeah, I think so. Hopefully, if we do well." And he said, "Well, that dealer over there at the craft table is allergic to tobacco smoke." And you're just like, "You're a dealer on the strip." What? It's been changing as far as Vegas goes. Anyways.
I can't believe I did that. I'm sorry.
Fuck.
I wiped it off.
This is why we don't share ashtrays. So Jake has a cigar on his side of the ashtray that he's been smoking the whole time.
And I took the band off.
And he took the band off. Mine's on, and he just picked mine up, took a puff off it, and then made a point to.
I realized it as soon as I did it.
Did it taste different? Is that?
No, I realized that the.
Fuck
you guys with these notes.
Cherry chapstick. No, cherry chapstick. That's interesting. Vegas is changing, man.
All right. So, anyways, the first time that Steve Saka was out there, and that was the year before I think I went out there, but he didn't have any of his cigars ready. So he had a booth there because he was coming out with the Barton Tobacco and Trust stuff, and he had no cigars. They weren't ready, so he wasn't going to force like samples out there. And that's, I watched the interviews on some of the news sites for cigars, like halfwheel.com, and he just was flat out, he's like, "Yeah, I don't have cigars. This is what we're doing. We've got a couple different blends. I figure if you like them, you're gonna buy them. If you don't like them, you're not gonna buy them. I hope you guys like them. And thanks for coming out. We got some couches over here. If you want to sit down for a little while and smoke some other people's stuff and chat with me." He's just really a straightforward guy, no nonsense guy. So he did really well at Drew Estate. He's been doing this, and he had that kind of attitude as we talked yesterday in the shop. He was there for about 2 hours. Again, came unannounced. But we do a little bit of business with them, so he wanted to stop at our shop.
Do reps calling ahead, or do they just show up?
Some of them do, some of them don't.
Do you prefer one way or the other?
I think from a business standpoint, and it's a respect thing, but it's also, again, certain shops, if you don't have an appointment, you just show up, you're even, rolling the dice on whether or not the decision holder is going to be there, especially at our shop.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
100%.
If you come in just to smoke and talk to some of the guys, or even talk to me, like I have everyone's got a little bit of influence, as far as ordering, but, Brian, the owner, he writes the checks, it's his credit card, his name on the credit card. So, I have the authority to place an order, but I'm not just going to place an order, without knowing and not, unless it's something that I know we absolutely need, it's a regular thing. Hey, yeah, we actually are short on this. Put this in, but then before you place the entire order and ship it, we might, let me talk to Brian, we might need to order a couple more things. So, with Steve Saka, though, he wasn't coming for an order necessarily. He was literally just stopping by to see the shop. I don't know if he's ever been to the shop. And we just had some great conversation. It was about everything. It was about his past there, talking about these blends. He gave us one of his new ones to smoke, which we do carry at the shop, called Compromiso.
You've had this one in the shop already?
We've had this one in the shop. It's called the Sobremesa. And it's medium bodied. I think it's one of his more complex blends. But as far as construction, you've got it's an Ecuadorian Habano Rosado wrapper leaf, which the Habano Rosado is going to be kind of like that. If you look at it, it's got more of like that medium brown look to it. And then it's a little different. It's got a Pennsylvania broadleaf Ligero, so it's actually tobacco grown in Pennsylvania, which has a different flavor to it. And then it's got Nicaraguan fillers from 4 different areas. And he gets all his stuff done at the Hoya Nicaragua factory, which is a very reputable factory. But some of the stuff I learned from the conversation yesterday, as opposed to, say, Omar from Fratello, which we like, you know, he gets a lot of his stuff done at the Hoya Nicaragua factory, but I think he uses all of their tobacco. Where Steve Saka, basically, he's in Ecuador, he's in Pennsylvania, he's in these places, he's buying this tobacco for a lot of his blends, and he's down there he's in all these places once a month, once every other month, and he's basically there to work with the tobacco growers, the farmers, and then basically he will have it shipped to Hoya Nicaragua.
Wow.
And then go to Hoya Nicaragua when they start all this stuff and say, this is what, he's going through. He's very hands-on. So, he even said he doesn't care for the sales side of it. He's more of an operations guy like he was for Drew Estate. So it's interesting to talk to a guy like that in the industry, that he's not just, blending like we do with the BS, for example. Like we talk to, Eric Espinosa, we work with Aganorsa Leaf, and we use their tobaccos, we use their blenders and all that stuff. This guy, Steve Saka, is to the point where he's buying tobacco and then taking it to a factory of people that he trusts, and then he makes sure that they're doing it the way that he wants to. And he's talking about like certain tobacco yields. So if you have thicker leaves for like wrapper leaf, where he says instead of having 22 pounds to make this many cigars, you're at 26 pounds because it's a thicker leaf. So you're going to have like just that yield, that crop is going to be a thicker wrapper leaf. So you might have a little bit different flavor, very small, varying parts, but it's also, he knows that he's got to spend a little bit more money to get the 26 pounds of tobacco, even though you're getting the same amount of overall cigars than you would if it was a different crop or a different year or a different month or whatever it might be. And it was a good conversation, because there was a lot of in-depth part of it where you don't think about some of these things. And again, being a no-nonsense guy, he's a tremendous guy to talk to, and this cigar, for me, what do you guys think of it?
I think construction-wise, it's one of the better constructed cigars that I've ever had. I didn't know all the things you were talking about before, but just the way it draws, how it feels, the way it smokes, I think it's really well made. Mm-hmm. I don't know, is this an $8? Is it $12? Is this? So
for the Corona size, you're at $10.95 on our shelf.
All right.
And that goes up to $15.95 for the other Vitolas, which is the size.
I do agree. I think it's medium body.
Medium.
But I do think it has a little bit more flavor than some of the other cigars I've had that are medium bodied. But again, I just think it's a really well made cigar.
Right. Yeah, it's densely packed.
That's exactly right.
But it draws. Like you think, like looking at it, feeling it. Yeah, you'd think that when you look at it as you smoke it, when you look at the cut, it's very densely packed. You'd think it's going to get plugged at times, but that's certainly not the case.
Yeah, it's kind of the happy medium where it's firm, but you can squeeze a little bit too, like once it gets a little warm.
That's how I like it.
God damn it, Spencer.
Feels real nice in the hand.
Firm, but it's got some feel to it.
Yeah. Right.
Yes. I like this size.
I like how you're happy about what you said.
Yeah. That's the most important thing. No, but I like the size. This is
so awkward.
Is there no weird name for this? He calls this a Corona.
No, he does call it. We all threw out our wrappers. I forget what I think it's just. I don't know. You got it? No. It's the Sobremesa. It's on the actual cello, but he does have some different names for some of this stuff. Like the Robusto Largo is like a typical Robusto size.
Do you guys still sell any of the acids?
Oh, acid sells like crazy.
That got me into cigars. I know that.
And it happens a lot.
The blue ones that are kind of like
Cuba and blondies.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so
delicious.
that's where we were talking with Steve Saka about that, is that when they came out with the Liga Privada line back in 2007, it was a shock. it was kind of a gamble to a point, but he blended it after some of the staple ones that he liked, like Brian Joyce was. The owner of the Tinderbox, where I work and Jake works, and one of our sponsors, he modeled it after like the Punch Maduros. He modeled it after some of these, the hardier smokes at the time that were, in the mid 2000s, they were still like $4 or $5.
Yeah.
So when they did this, he kind of took that as a model for the Liga Privada number 9 and said, we've got the ability to age this stuff a little bit longer, make some premium, choices as far as the tobacco being used, and do it on a smaller yield. And that's where it basically came from.
Yeah.
It was what he liked smoking on a regular basis. So it wasn't like this whole thing where it's like, we're going to blow away all the competition. He's like, no, I'm going to make a cigar that I know sells well, and I'm going to do it a little bit better, with better quality and more, as far as not better standards, but just the ability to do a smaller amount and make it with more aged tobacco, and then also age it for a year once it's rolled. Like all these steps that you don't do with the other cigars that are out there. Yeah. And it killed. It absolutely killed.
That's why I really wanted to meet him. I'm so bummed out that I actually had a job and I had to work while he was there. But he just seems like one of those guys that, like you said, he rolls and blends stuff the way that he would like it to be. And I can appreciate what Eric Espinosa and a lot of these guys do, where they come out with these quirky blends that are for the masses. They might not necessarily like it, but they're doing it to see what people get out of it, and that's great. But I feel like if I was in a blender's shoes, that's the way I would be, where I'd be like you and Brian, or
it's almost like the
Steve
whiskey
Saka.
world, where they take the pride and they really kind of groom it to be the way they want it to be.
Well, we've talked enough about Eddie Russell the past 3 weeks, but look at him. He set it to be that Wild Turkey was going to be literally one mash bill for his bourbon, and look how many things came out of it over the past decade. So it's just interesting that he's done this, and to have a kind of a following, if you will, from being a blender of the Ligas and doing all that, and then going to, I know that the Mi Querida is a big seller in the tender box, and I love the Mi Querida.
But this, I think, blows it away as far as complexity.
You think so?
Yeah, I think Mi Querida is actually more down the line of that, the Liga 9, that punch Maduro. It's got that characteristic, so it's a great seller. But as far as flavors and what's going on, this is definitely more, I think, refined. And you're taking a gamble with that Ecuadorian wrapper and a Pennsylvania broadleaf binder, which is a unique flavor. But it's a lot of times you hear Pennsylvania broadleaf, for those of you really big cigar smokers out there, you get a certain flavor that is different. It's a little bit more in your face, a little more harsh in my opinion, and I don't get any of that on this.
No.
So when you hear that, you read it, you talk about it, I'm shocked that it's a Pennsylvania broadleaf.
We should have done a Pennsylvania rye with this and see where it did.
Yeah.
But another time.
Did you guys talk to Mr. Russell at all about Mr. McConaughey?
He talked about it.
He did.
So how did that start?
Well, it was kind of interesting where he was explaining that it took over almost how many, 44 or 46 recipe or different blends.
A lot of blends,
Yeah, that he's done, and it got to the point.
He sent them 4 at a time.
Yeah.
That's how McConaughey rolls, though.
But it was interesting to hear Eddie, because if people don't know, Eddie's the one that, Eddie Russell, the son of Jimmy Russell, has kind of been the one to pursue the different stuff that has came out of Wild Turkey, like the master blends and the the revival that came out, the Master's Keep revival that was in a Oloroso sherry cask, and the different stuff, and bringing back the ryes and stuff like that. But it was interesting to hear that it got to the point where they weren't really getting anywhere, and Matthew McConaughey said, well, do you want to add a little bit of flavoring and this stuff and that? And we all know that if you do that, it can't be considered a straight Kentucky bourbon whiskey, and they wanted it to be a Kentucky straight bourbon whiskey. And then Eddie he came up with the idea of the Texas Mesquite charcoal filtering, and it added that little bit of smoke that Matthew wanted. But it was funny because Eddie, the first thing he said before he even started the conversation was that we were doing this as a marketing thing, but I wanted it to set a standard that this was going to be my project.
Yeah, he said that it's got Matthew McConaughey's name literally on the bottle, but it also has my name on the bottle. So it's got Eddie Russell on there, and he's like, Matthew McConaughey's on a 3-year contract with us. I've got a lifetime contract, so it needs to be what I want, and that he also
Likes.
A lot of celebrities are getting into the
sure.
the liquor game. Obviously, Connor, and then The Rock just came out with the tequila, and I'm sure.
Is it out? I thought he was working on it.
He sent me some, and it's
Did
you'll
he?
like it. You'll like it.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool.
But
We got some. Liz has got some George Clooney tequila in there as well. It's got George Clooney's name on it, so you know it's got to be good and handsome.
And then Ron White came out with a tequila too.
I like
Really,
Ron
tequila of all things?
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
You'd think it'd be whiskey, right?
And
he
it's-
pushes that. He
Dude.
pushes that tequila a lot.
Oh, it's hilarious. And it's called the number Juan. So it's
Perfect. Well, tequila, the big one that I remember being a celebrity.
Cabo Wabo.
Bingo.
Sammy Hagar.
Yeah,
Went to his place
it's got a bar down there, right?
10 years ago. It's
Yeah.
actually very good tequila.
It is good tequila.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's no Jose Cuervo, but it's pretty good. You'll like it, yeah.
So
Thanks.
we're smoking and we're drinking this, right? Like I'm not drinking the Burning Chair anymore. What do you guys think of it?
Burning Chair.
Like the two together.
That's interesting because I haven't really smoked the Sobremesa with the Nicholson that we have out there, but I think it would go better. I'm getting just a strong, almost tart finish from the Burning Chair.
With the smoke.
Yeah, or maybe just by itself. I
think
don't know.
They're two separate entities, which is fine. I think the Burning Chair stands alone, the cigar stands alone. It's tough to do the pairings that you guys try to do.
Yeah.
Try to line them up. I mean, you guys have done
That's completely
over
random
60s
too.
of these. I mean, out of the 60 episodes, how many of them do you like, hey, we nailed it?
Yeah.
No, I mean, as a...
It's an
a
honest
handful of
question.
the
Yeah,
time.
I mean, really, it's not the majority in my opinion.
It's really a crapshoot.
Yeah.
And when it does happen, it's really exciting. And then when it isn't good, it's also kind of exciting because it's like, okay, we won't do that again.
Which
Yeah,
one
that was
went
one.
best, in your opinion?
That's a tough question.
That is a tough one because I can't remember.
Probably the worst one we did was the one we've talked about before, is the Oliva V.
The Black and Mild, I remember.
No, the Oliva V and the Booker's.
It was a
Buckers
Booker's
would be tough to go with anything, I got
It was
say.
the Kentucky
Backyard
Chew,
barbecue.
man.
No, it was backyard barbecue.
Or backyard barbecue.
Yeah.
Too.
Yeah, so Booker's Backyard Barbecue and the Oliva V on a 90-degree day was not.
It was,
There's three components.
It's a good idea and a bunch of reasons why it's a good idea.
Yeah.
but that one even worked if it was like 20 below. Like it was just so spice and
Do you like Booker's?
woody drip. No.
Do people like Booker's?
Oh, people love it.
Is that just because they can say, I'm a man, I like the high proof, or do people actually like the taste of it?
I think people really like the taste of it because it's something that before the the cast strength boom that we're in right now of whiskeys, that's what it always was. It was the one that people knew that it was going to kind of punch them in the mouth and it was going to have all this oak flavor. And my initial thought when I tried Booker's, like in the 2015s, the 15 batches, I think were just, I mean, you might as well just lick a tree because it was just oak. It was just oak and wood, and there was really no. Now, again, my palate wasn't developed as it is now, if it is at all. But I think that, like the Kathleen's batch,
That's my favorite.
I
I've
wish
had.
I had a case of it.
What's that?
So it was the first installment of 2018 for Booker's, and they always do 4 now. It used to be more than
Does
4.
it come in the box, the whole
Yeah,
deal?
yeah. And it was,
It's labeled on there
Yeah.
which batch it is.
and it was absolutely phenomenal. And it was a little lower proof than what they normally do too.
I got an idea. We should
Might be why it
put,
tastes good.
I think anything that you put in a box, you can charge a lot more money for.
Yeah.
If you're trying to give somebody a gift or something like that, like I was trying to get somebody, I think Booker's is the only one that's really well positioned to give as a gift.
Yeah, I think you're right as far as bourbon goes. But I mean, like scotches and stuff have done that for a while with the boxes or the tubes.
Yeah.
You know, it's just that extra packaging that
Yeah.
it can't cost a whole lot, but it's gonna.
It's just
it,
10.
it pops it. It definitely does.
But I don't know, initially I thought like the pairing was okay, but I agreed with you, Spencer, kind of that, or they're separate entities. I'll say this, I did like the aroma of the cigar while I was drinking the Burning Chair, if that makes sense.
I got you.
So, kind of an interesting take on that. But
I'm going to probably bring back the offer to buy that bottle from Chuck I'm gonna see if he's all right with it.
You're gonna get two.
No.
He's not going to get one at all.
No, part of it was I wanted to try it myself, and I wanted to have it on the podcast. The fact that Jake got it already.
Sorry.
No, it's fine. It's
Is Chuck listening?
I don't think so, but
It's going to be an awkward conversation. Man.
Absolutely not. He actually texted me pictures of this next to the lip service, the rye, which I would still like to try the rye, but it's over $60 at his cost, so I imagine it's like $70 here in Ohio. If you can find it.
Yeah, I've never seen the rye.
And I don't want to necessarily spend $40 just because. He just got it, and I said, well, yeah, you've been talking about it, and I haven't tried it yet. I said, if you have a bottle, I'd love to try it. And he said, yeah, no problem. So it's just going to be, hey, we already had it on the podcast, and I'm not as wild about it. And I'll offer to buy it off of him if he's trying to unload it. But if he really loves it, then there's no point.
It's definitely one that, I'll say this, and this is my last comment on the whiskey, is that if you want something cool in your bar that's interesting, looks cool, tastes different, and it's something that if you hold tastings at your house, because people do that, it's something that you can say, oh, I got something that you need to try that's like available. You know what I mean? Because most of the time when you go over to houses, I know, with me especially, it's like, oh, can I get this somewhere? And it's like, no. So it's like you might as well try something that you can at least get, even if you like it.
Yeah.
But this is definitely something that I think that you should have in your bar if you got $50 you want to blow.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Or if you have, for me, it's like if there's Buffalo Trace out there, I'd buy 2 bottles of Buffalo Trace, or then I buy this.
Or a handle.
But again, there's a variety thing there, right? I mean, there is that aspect of if you want to have something different that random night, whether or not you're having company or not, you just want to have something different. This isn't a bad one. I mean, it's not a bad whiskey. It's not a bad bourbon. It's not. When you told me it was $50 on the shelf in Ohio, it would be a hard pass for me to buy a bottle again.
Yep, I agree.
Spencer?
I concur. I just try not to look at the dollar value versus what the taste is. Buffalo Trace is delicious, and it's, Weller's $27, and that's probably the best thing you can get for $27.
Yeah.
Where did you think this was at before I told you how much it was?
$40, something like that. But I think it's because it's from California.
Yeah, it's smaller name.
Yeah, they probably don't make as many bottles. It's not necessarily because it tastes better or worse than anything else. It's probably the rarity of it.
Well, and I think every new distillery that is coming out, I mean, you look at the bigger distilleries that are around, like Buffalo Trace, for instance, like they have a lot of bottles that are 20 to 30 range, along with Jim Beam and stuff. And then you have something like this, even New Riff stuff that is coming out of Newport, Kentucky, is all brand new, and it's around that $40 mark to $50 mark.
So what? But because it's $50, that would pique my interest.
Really?
Yeah.
How so?
Well, if this just costs $25, I would just go right buy it.
So people buy for different reasons,
People
right?
buy for different reasons, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's all about marketing.
Well, we can amend you, Dave Finney.
Let's save it then. Let's get into it here.
All right.
Go ahead and let everyone know. Share it here.
Yes.
That's what I'm doing here again.
Please share it. It's topic time, people. We're getting into springtime and keeping things fresh. So please like it and share it up. We enjoy all the comments that we've seen. Tyler Jones, we hope you're enjoying your cigar and your whiskey, and everyone else that is also enjoying a cigar and whiskey. And if you're not smoking or drinking, it's fine. Just enjoy us, act like idiots.
All right, so here's my thing about this topic, and I want to get into it because I'm looking at this, what we're doing, and I know there's a lot of different reasons why, when we have this Facebook Live thing, that sometimes you'll see it blow up, we're at 20 to 30 people at a time, other times like right now, and this is what's interesting. Dustin, are you on it right now, or are you texting?
Yeah. Don't be calling Dustin out.
No, I'm asking because I've seen it go down to 2 to 1 viewers right now, and now
people are out and about, man. It's a gorgeous night.
It's fine. I'm not defending it. What I'm saying is that it's interesting with the springtime part of it. So when I look at like keeping it fresh, the reason I like this topic is because as you do things longer and longer and longer, a new job becomes just a job, something that causes more stress. It's not new. It's not fresh. It's It's not something that exciting as exciting for you. You're not learning as much. It's just kind of the same old, same old. Relationships go through these as well. You know, I hear a lot of times the 7-year mark for relationships and also jobs and also anything in life, for whatever reason, it's a 7-year mark.
How many years is the tinderbox?
For me, 6.
Oh.
No, and I've actually gone through I've gone through the ups and downs. At 2 Men in a Truck when I worked there, it was like every 2 years I get bored, and then all of a sudden I get like a promotion or a different, task or whatever, and it would be like, all right, now I'm back in. But like doing this stuff, I look at, some of these episodes where, like you had mentioned, Jake, towards the beginning of the episode, is that you have this record number of shares, but the overall views aren't there. I'm here at 61 a week later, and I'm watching this. We're floating at like 1 or 2 views at a time, and then it went up to like a dozen or 15, and then it's back down to this. To Spencer's point, it's springtime. It's a nice night in Columbus. We have a lot of viewers in the Ohio area, obviously, which is where we're based out of, but then you're all over the place as well. So the weather's getting nicer in the United States, mainly. So, I mean, as far as that goes, is you have people that are probably busier. Now you got springtime activities. You've got, family functions going on. So we may not see it, but when I look at it as a personal challenge in a sense, that how do we stay relevant? Because again, you get into this and you wake up, it's a nice day, literally the birds are chirping right now. You don't hear that. We haven't heard that for many, many weeks and months.
A lot of time.
But when you get after it here is that, episode 61, we're well into year number 2 here. What do you do to keep things fresh for yourself, for people tuning in? It's like, oh, they're talking about another bourbon, all right, they're talking about another whiskey, they're having topic. Spencer's been on before. I enjoyed him before. I don't really want to hear what he has to say tonight, but but I mean, I'm looking at it. It's like, how do you do that?
I know, man.
No,
Get off already.
Because when Jake and I talk about this every week, I mean, literally, like last week we had it kind of built up with Dino because it was a guest that we didn't know. It was something that we had lined up. At the end of this month, we've got Ricky Rodriguez coming in from CAO, which we know.
Good God, that's a great
And he's a great guy, and he's a master blender for a major company. So it's like that's one that you can prepare for. We got to make sure that we got the right stuff for. We got because it's some, and it's not that Spencer is less of an important guest, but it's someone that it's like, all right, we got Spencer on. He can talk about anything. Cool. Well, what are we smoking? I don't know. I haven't decided yet. We haven't really figured it out. And then it's like, well, like I literally was going to the liquor store today, and I saw Jake last night, and I'm like, hey, did you have something in mind? I went in, bought something I knew he didn't have, and then by the time I'm walking back to my car, he's like, burning chair. And I was like, no, I didn't get that yet from Chuck, because that was the original plan. And he's like, no, I got some. And it's like, so it's like they kind of come together, because even for us, trying to do something that we enjoy, sometimes those things can become mundane. They can be kind of phone it in, and we don't want to ever do that on the podcast here. So that's where sometimes we reach out to other people around us. We reach out to the viewers, the listeners, everything else, that we want to be able to have this where everything that we're doing, and building off of last week, being actively present, everything that you're doing, you want to make sure that when I say keeping it fresh, it's not always new. It's just have that same level or close to the same level of enthusiasm where what we were doing as we were figuring it out, or the greatest hits episodes, if you will. The ones that just had great feedback and great views and great listens as far as that goes. Like, how do you duplicate that? Like, you have to keep that content in your life, in the like doing something like this, very, very fresh and very, I guess, engaging for everyone involved, including everyone at this table.
Yeah, and I think we do it the right way, where we don't have a pre-recorded intro.
Right.
And every intro is different. I mean, it has kind of the same aspect to it every time.
Yeah.
But it's different every time. The ding at the the glass against the bottle.
Sometimes you do a good job at it. Sometimes you don't.
Yeah, but it's different every time, and it's a different sound, and the way that we say things is different every time.
Sure.
So I think that when you're talking about keeping things fresh, especially in this beautiful weather that we're having, and the podcast on its own, I think we're doing the right thing where it is all raw. It is all, you see what you get and you listen to what you're getting. I mean, there's nothing that we're keeping from you. There's nothing that we're really, and I'm really happy about it. There's nothing that we're rehearsing. There's no script. I write down a few notes just so I don't lose my head on things, but I think with people, especially for me around this time of year in the Midwest, I do get bogged down by, the winter. I love the winter initially because I actually do love snow. I like being in it. I like the way it looks. I love, having warm coats and stuff like that. But
you are a good coat guy.
Yeah.
You like coats and hats. And
thanks.
Yeah.
No, I like it. And Alicia helped with getting that Filson Packer, but
getting the Filson job first of all.
Yeah, that too. But I think for people most of the time it's just mindset.
Which part?
Just being fresh. I think if people look at certain things different ways, because you can look at your job a different way the next day if you make your mind up. You are. And so and what I mean by that is if it's it's like a different task, it's not just, I'm stuck at this job. You're looking at the future, like 10 years down the road and saying, well, is this like all I'm doing with my life? Or are you looking at it as like a new chance, a new opportunity to say, this is where I can make my presence known in the company? If you're talking about a job, with a relationship, it could be something where you're just being spontaneous. Whether you're not just getting home from work, like you may come home or you may stop by the flower shop before you come home, just randomly.
Right.
Random acts of kindness. I mean, it's about making the most of your situation. I think sometimes, myself included, when we're, going through the motions of everyday life where, especially right now, like people that haven't done taxes are freaking out about...
People haven't done taxes.
Yeah. I mean, there are people...
For sure.
There's people that are freaking out about taxes.
Yeah, I was going to say you better get on that, man.
Yeah, so,
You got a week.
And people are freaking out about taxes, so they're worried about their job.
Or an extension.
And if you have
Again.
A late fee.
Whatever.
But if you have like a normal job, like it's hard to make it to, if you're not, doing like TurboTax, you're going somewhere, you're going to a standalone business, and you're trying to find time, and you're talking with your boss, like, hey, what time can you get off to at least take like 2 hours and go get your taxes done and,
yeah.
and stuff like that, and you get bogged down like that, and then you come home and either not really forget about your family, but you don't want to do anything, and you're stressing out about other things, and it's just a lot of things. And it's a lot of perspectives, but what I'm trying to hone in on is that perspective about what we're really talking about and keeping things fresh. I think at the core, it's mostly about your perspective on what's going on. It's not really anything that is monetary and shit that you can change on a whim. I think it's just the way you look at it. And I think that after a while, people start looking at stuff the same way, and they get bogged down by the fact that they're stagnant. And if you're stagnant, they don't have a purpose. And then if you don't have a purpose, you don't understand what you're living for at a deeper level. But if you look at it with a good perspective, and you change your way of thinking, well, so I've been at this job, this is my goal, this is where I'm thinking of going, or this is where I want to go, and this is the time frame that I want to do it in. It creates purpose, it creates a good perspective for you, and it creates a goal.
I like what you're saying. Purpose, I also think challenge.
Yeah.
Like if you create new challenges for yourself,
yeah,
or new goals. If you just say, hey, I want a promotion, all right, how are you going to get there?
Mm-hmm.
Like, Crane, how many years have you been doing the 10th event?
This was 7.
This is 7 years?
Yeah, it's year
all right,
7.
So I'm guessing this year was a lot different than any other years.
Yeah, for multiple reasons.
Right,
yeah,
so you had a
absolutely.
new challenge, and even though you've done it for 6 years prior, you had to find a new reason to make this one interesting and to make this one bigger and better than ever.
It was different this year, as you know, for
I thought it was great,
podcast, but I mean, it was because of the reason, the reasons we we had to do it on a different night. We had to do it with different challenges. That was the big thing, is that we had bigger hurdles, if you will, just to get the event off, and that was the tough part. So that's one of the reasons why it was different. But yeah. Every year before that was, all right, it's another Sunday event, and it's like, all right, so we want to add these vendors, or like the year we added the Q&A, and then the year we added the brunch and the Q&A for the VIP guys, and then we added, it was like, how do we beat last year? Absolutely. I mean, that was part of it. This last year was a survival mode type of a thing, because we were about to not do the event.
And it was a
But
month
you
away.
guys mentioned Duck on Water a few episodes ago.
That's right.
Nobody really cares what all went into it. People just want the event to happen.
A lot of people do, and then with the feedback,
350 people show up.
the
and
feedback
really
we hear
happen.
a lot though. The feedback we hear a lot though is that it's like I looking around, like we have Eric Espinosa has a new rep, right, and he was in yesterday as well after Steve Saka was in, and he was even saying to Steve, like this was such a great event because they were crossing paths there, and he was like, I'm looking around and thinking like, man, they should have this down in this area, and then he started thinking about it even more. He's like, I can't imagine the amount of moving parts to make this happen.
It's incredible.
So there is a certain perspective that you do think about that stuff for some people.
Oh, no, I think people definitely care about the work that went in.
But they just want an event.
They just want the event.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, the end result was, you had challenges, you had things that didn't go your way, you switched nights, but at the end of the day, the event went off without a hitch.
Sure, yeah.
Everyone had a great time, had the scars, had great food, all that good stuff that went along with it.
So my thing, why is it then, like when you're keeping things fresh, you say it's a perspective and an attitude?
Like you can choose your own happiness type thing, like you can wake up and change your attitude?
I think that's most of it for people.
Right, so, but when you think about keeping things fresh, the opposite to me is things are in a rut, or they're just, you're going through the motions. Those are the two sayings I'd say. Well, you have your honeymoon period. But why is it then, and you guys answer this for me, why is it that when the winter breaks, when the warm weather happens, when the seasons change for those of us that experience seasons, why is it that there is a big shift? Just because it gets lighter earlier and later, and it gets warmer, and like, what is it to you guys? Because I have my own feel on this, but for Spencer and Jake, why keeping things fresh, sometimes everything changes for people when it becomes from winter to spring.
Yeah.
What is it?
So I'll speak for myself personally. So a lot of people don't like the time change or think it's a pain in the butt or whatever it is.
Both sides of it?
Both sides, sure, why not?
Yeah.
But when I woke up that Monday and it was light in the morning, I was in a much better mood for whatever reason that Monday after the time change.
You don't know why?
Well, I do know why, because there was sun out.
Okay.
And it was light. We're outside right now and there's still a little bit of hint of sun. That could just be a light outside, but there's definitely a...
It's holding on, but yeah, that is actually my little solar light there.
The day lasts longer. It goes till 7:30, 8 o'clock. When you wake up in the morning, the sun's there versus waking up and going to your car and it's cold, and all that type of stuff is not as fun to be in. Have you been to the gym at all this week?
Yeah, thanks for noticing.
Yeah, no problem.
Three times.
Was the gym a little bit more crowded the past couple weeks than in weeks past?
So it's interesting, at the end of March and April, at the end of the first quarter, it's actually down just because you will see it pick back up when you have consistently warm weather, but you have that New Year's resolution. So it's actually that, again, we talked about that at New Year's, where it's like people have this, they wait until a calendar point to make changes. Hey, it's Monday, New Year's, whatever it might be. Well, now it's the fact that you put on your spring clothes, and that's something that I wanted to touch base.
Spring clothes.
But you put on your spring, you don't have your bulky jackets. You don't have, these sweaters, the sweatshirts. Now all of a sudden you're in this thinner top or shorts, and it's like, shit, these don't fit the same as they did at the end of last summer. And now all of a sudden it's like, well, now I got that. Then when you see people more in the gym, you see the diets changing because they actually put on their favorite t-shirt, they put on their favorite pair of shorts, or for female, or I'm not gonna say just for females, put on your favorite skirt.
I think it's safe to say females.
2019, open your mind. But
no.
No. But I'm saying you put those articles on, you're like, I thought I put a little weight on, but damn, this doesn't fit right now. I gotta go buy new clothes.
Well, how did you feel when the Cubs started this year? Are you happy, man?
Felt good with season opener. Since then, we've struggled. I haven't looked at the score tonight, but I mean,
really inside baseball talk right here. But I mean, were you happy when it is opening day? Is that
for me? Yeah,
that
that's
change
what I'm saying.
season?
So
yeah,
for
like
me,
when you tried to open up, I was
and
like,
that's why I'm asking you
yeah.
guys. There's for me. I mean, I've got my
it's
thoughts
spring
on
and
it.
summertime now. I'm done with the snow. We had a little bit of snow/cold.
Sport-wise, though, I miss football already.
Well, the AAF has been gone for a couple days now, and that was a shame.
From this
I'm
time,
gonna pour one out for you.
from this time until the next time that Spencer's on, we're gonna have a whiteboard back here, and he's just gonna text us questions, so
Yeah.
at least we can prepare for the
I like
questions.
it. I like it. All right, Jake, switch to you. Like, why do you think that with the springtime, when we talk about this, spring is here, keeping things fresh.
Yeah.
What is it about the season change going into spring that we're talking about this topic? What is it for people that you see that freshness? You see that change. You if you were in a winter depression, if you were in a rut during the colder months, if you're in.
You guys ever go down south? You guys ever go to Florida or anything like that during winter?
No.
I don't go. No, not typically. Actually, most of the time I go down south. It's in the warmer months.
Smart. So try going in the winter months when it's a little colder. I think sunshine plays a big deal with it, man.
Okay. What do you think?
Well,
Jake?
if you go like to the scientific level, I mean, you can talk about vitamin D, and Steve and I have talked about that not on the podcast, where like he takes a lot of vitamin D on the off season, like during the winter months.
Yeah, I take it all year round, actually.
Yeah, where he's keeping the energy level up, and I know for me especially,
A lot of benefits to that.
I think of the same thing like Spencer does, where no one really wants to wake up when it's dark outside still, and when the time changes and it's it's sunny out by 6:30, 7 a.m. You want to get up and you want to spring out of bed, and because it's easier to wake up when there's light out. I think for most people.
Well, how'd you motivate yourself when you were doing that like 4 a.m. crew, that 5 a.m. crew to get
Good
up?
question.
It's the middle of the night, right?
For me, yeah, it is. Because I'll stay up past that now. But it's...
You'll stay up past 4 a.m.?
Yeah.
On the weekends, typically.
Yeah, and I did when I was doing that.
Whoa, good for you, man.
I don't know if it's
No.
good for me, but not
It
really.
wasn't always the most choice move.
Trying to give him the benefit of the doubt.
That's nice of
I
you.
appreciate it, Spencer. It's good to have a man in my court.
I'm not saying not in your court. I'm saying you don't choose not to do it now. That you don't have to do it.
Yeah, exactly. And no, for me, what motivated me was because it was something, honestly, for me, it was something that I just had always done.
You got up at 4 a.m.?
Well, no, but I had always lifted, like in college, we were lifting at 6 a.m. So for a lot of people, when I first did it, it's a big difference to wake up 2 hours earlier than what you did initially. But most of the time, like anything, if you do it enough, your body adapts, right? But what I will say is that trying to include this lifestyle with doing that was just not a good choice at all. And it took me a good 6 months to finally be able to, I think in my head mentally, recover from just not sleeping for a year or so. And what I think about with like, what I was meaning by the perspective of it was just saying that at the core, I think that's what it is, but we can dive into what Steve was talking about with spring and the seasons changing, because I do think that plays a big factor in it. It plays a big factor in
Why?
Why?
That's what I'm trying to get at here. Like, why do you guys think that?
Why? Because people want to look good. It's the same. I mean, you basically said exactly what it was. Is they put on their spring clothes, they put on their sundresses, they put on their shorts, their flip-flops, they put on...
I think that's part of it, yeah.
The swimming trunks, they take their shirt off, and it's like, oh shit, there's like an extra stretch mark there. Or there's, it's whatever. You may have gained like 20 pounds over the winter.
Right.
It doesn't matter,
Right.
but it's one of those things where it's like showing more skin matters because you're trying to look your best, and especially now, when you're talking about the gym, Steve, and there's not a lot of people there, or is there a lot of people there?
That's what Spencer asked, yeah.
Either or, if there's not a lot of people there, I think it's because of spring break. If there is a lot of people there, it's because the weather changed and people want to look good. I even thought about that today because I've been meaning to get back into it, but I'm also kind of in that weird phase where it's like, well, I'm okay with it. And now that's my mindset because I was so gung-ho about being fit, being strong, being very
yoked.
not yoked, but
Yoked. I like that.
very regimented style, very scheduled.
We need a little break.
Yeah, and I think that's where I am now, and I'm comfortable where I am now. But even, looking in the mirror today, I was waking up, at 8 o'clock with the sun beaming and stuff like that. And, you look in the mirror and you're like, wow, if I took my shirt off at the pool today, I wouldn't be happy with myself. So I think that has a lot to play into it when you're talking about personal
I think it does too.
freshness, if you will.
I think it's service level, literally service level, but it's also obviously there's a deeper side of it. I look at the whole thing with springtime coming around, right? So everything changes in a lot of ways. Again, I kind of alluded to it with the fact that, like, say you have family, you have kids, right? Now you have new baseball season started, not just Major League, but now you got to get the kids to their springtime activities.
Yeah.
So now your schedules change, right?
Yep.
Now you got yard work. Now you got these outside
looking forward to
activities.
that?
I had yard work even though renting the house. Are you going
to take a little more pride, or are you going to enjoy?
I'll take a little more pride. It's not the priority for me as far as, because the yard that in this house is not in great shape. So it's not like, from a financial standpoint, I'm not going to overhaul the yard.
If you see
the first
weeds,
time.
you may pick the
Absolutely.
weeds.
But to that point is, I also look at it as being a new time homeowner again, is I got used to the first month or so here with the wintertime type stuff. Now it's like, all right, so how important is a pest control for ants and stuff?
Very.
No, I'm saying, like, in this house, like, what are the
No. That's why I was saying
Listen,
it's important for the house.
No, the summertime things that, like, springtime will open up a whole new ball of wax for the home ownership side of it. You know what I mean? Like, so
different challenges.
there's all sorts of stuff. Yeah, you get to, like, first time I see the yard, see the I already see the weeds coming up, and just last week, But I'm just saying, like, as far as, like, the springtime, keeping things fresh, it's something that pushes people. Just, there is the obvious stuff, where it's like, oh, it's lighter earlier, I wake up. It's not like I go to work when it's dark and I leave work when it's dark. I have nothing. It's like, in the evenings now you can barbecue, you can play softball, you can go to the park. You have this, like, whole other life that has been not there for 4 months in the Midwest, especially.
It's like 6 months.
We appreciate the warmer weather and we appreciate the outside.
But I'm saying, like, it opens up every year, just like, metaphorically, like with the flowers coming back. You're re-emerging from your daily routine. It's just you can be fresh again. So it's like, when you're doing that year round, that's the challenge. Coming out of this, it's like when you get out of work so Jake's now working a 8 to 5-ish,
9 to 5.
9 to 5-ish. It's before it's at 5 o'clock. It's dark. It's getting dark. It's like, all right, so it's I either go to the shop, I get to do this, or I go home and I just hang out at home in the apartment, watch TV, stay indoors, whatever it is. Now it's like, all right, so shit, I'm walking out of work and it's like it's noon. And now you have all this opportunity to do new stuff, to do things that you enjoy doing. So that's, for me, that's where the keeping things fresh thing is that with springtime coming around, it's the easy way to keep things fresh. There's a new season. There's new opportunities for that. And that's where I was looking at as, going into the topic time for this is year round. How do you get that kind of feeling on a regular basis? Stay out of ruts, stay out of those mundane times. There are I think there's an importance that the mundane times do, actually, just like anything, happiness or ups and downs, that, you have to have the downs to feel the ups, that type of thing. But how do you keep that freshness without a season change?
That's a tough one, man. I think it's a tough one in relationships. I think it's a tough one
Absolutely.
in work life. If I knew the answer, I'd be a lot smarter, man. I think that the thing is that it can't just be the weather, right? It's got to be,
Right.
just like Jake said, on a random day to do the flowers, to do that type of thing, to show the significant other that he or she means something to you.
Right.
It's tough, man. I think we all get into ruts for a variety of reasons. I think it's important to realize that when we are in the ruts, as well.
Very,
so
very
at
true.
least
I like
if
that
if
point.
you know that you're in the rut, to acknowledge it and to hopefully try to get your butt out of it. But work-wise, I think it's about finding new opportunities, new challenges. How can you at the Tinderbox, how can we make next year's event bigger and better? How can we make this year's sales more than last year? Now, there's a million ideas. There's probably 50 ideas. Pick one or two and actually run with it. How can we show the significant other that we don't take them for granted? Because you can get set in your ways. You can get set into, I want to get through this, last season of Shameless, things along those lines.
Watch a little bit of that show. It's good.
It is good. It took over my life for a little bit. We got through like 7 seasons.
Do you want to use this opportunity to talk about your
Yeah,
problem?
I'm a season behind, so no spoilers. But it has been sitting in my Netflix query for like a year, like a season 9.
Yeah.
I know if I start it, I'm in trouble for like the next several weeks because you're not going to want to watch anything else.
Right.
You got to get through
Every
that.
little time that you have, you watch like 10 minutes, right?
I try to
Or do you
watch,
have to do the whole
watch
episode?
it. She will fall asleep, and then it's can we rewind? And it's a whole thing that I'm dealing with. I got first world problems here, Steve.
My mom's answer is
Feel
move to
sorry.
Florida.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
So there
Lori
is.
says move to Florida. Not bad advice.
You do feel better when you are in the Floridas of the world, in the Californias, things like that. So I know that's what has kept my grandparents alive. Now I got a 96 and a 93-year-old grandparent.
Living down south.
Yeah, and they did half the year here, and they did half the year in Ohio.
Yeah.
And they would tell you that it kept them alive. I don't think it's healthy to be in this
But even that though,
this shit weather year round.
right. But even that, and we don't have it all year round. But like you're saying, like that's part of it too. Is that even the opportunity that they could live down in Florida the entire year? There's the snowbird type of a thing, in that demographic where once you hit that retirement, not everyone just goes south or goes to a warmer climate and then just stays in that house. They try to do both. Like
But
they
then
come
it's too
back.
hot in the summer. It's too hot down
It's
there.
too cold here.
Yeah.
You turn the air conditioner. You don't go outside here. You don't go outside in the summer there.
Yeah.
They both have their challenges. I mean,
Right.
it's all moved to San Diego and 70 degrees and sunny year round.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like they have central air outside.
I think
Amazing.
I think for me though, like
Yes.
the sticking point for like keeping things fresh, and especially with springtime, like especially like you see is like if you're on the freeway and you're like driving, like people like that have like hot cars, and what I mean is like muscle cars, like they're flying, they're revving their engines, like they're ready to rock and roll, and it's just I don't know, it's just one of those times that. I don't want to make it seem to be, but it is exactly what Steve said. It's the easiest way to look at it, where people are feeling free, they're outside, they're not in close quarters, they're not surrounded by the same four walls.
Right.
In our
Cabin fever.
Yeah, and when you're
Tribe fever.
Cabin fever.
Yeah, like when you're outside and you're able to do
Awesome.
these things, it opens up a different world. And I think that, I don't know if you guys knew this, but have you ever heard of the same, if you do the same thing for 21 days, it becomes a habit?
I have heard that. You know
So-
how long it takes to break a habit?
No, I don't.
One day.
One bottle of whiskey.
All right.
That is true. 21 days.
Yeah, so it's like if
Have you tried that?
Yeah, I have.
What'd you do?
It was when
Drank bourbon.
no, I didn't. I was not drinking. There it is.
I'm on day 422.
I was not drinking.
It
I was
stuck.
not
It stuck.
Do you think you can stop?
I actually no, I
21
did.
days.
The last 3 days I haven't drank.
21 days.
Oh yeah, I could do that. It'd be tough because and it's not because of the alcohol. And this is what I've talked about, is that even when I came over here on Monday night, like Steve was, he had like a couple glasses, small glasses.
Yeah.
But what I was doing is smelling the bottles, and it wasn't the alcohol. It was just it was funny because I could actually get more flavors
Yeah.
out of it because I wasn't drinking it.
Right.
If that makes a difference.
Doesn't make a difference.
But yeah, I could definitely do that. But it's one of those things where, like, keeping things fresh, that would be one thing, and that's why, like, for the last 3 days, I haven't drank anything, and Alicia was kind of like, well, why are you doing this? And I'd tell her like, oh, I'd really like to have like a pour or something, and she said, well, why are you doing? She asked me the question, why are you doing this? Like, is it just to prove somebody wrong? Is it to prove like to yourself that you're not an alcoholic, like stuff like that? And I said, no.
So that's a good girl to just ask the question.
Yeah, and she knows, and and my answer is it's more for myself to say that I can. It's kind
interesting.
And it was because I mean, we live in this world where, you know, if you have more than, you know, 3 glasses or considered like 6, and in whiskey it's a little bit different than beer, right? Because if you have like 2 ounces, that's 2 drinks. So if you have 3 2-ounce pours, it's 6 drinks.
Yeah.
And if you have that every
Allegedly. But
if you go to the doctor, the way that it's
Nancy Downs, another one. Yeah.
If you go to the doctor, though, that's considered, if you do that more than, you know, even 4 nights a week, you're considered an alcoholic.
It's less than that, but yeah, you're right.
So it's like,
You're right.
you know, it was kind of one of those things that I just wanted to do it to say I did it. I follow a whiskey, it's called Whiskey Vault on YouTube, and they're really good guys, and they do, every month they do what they call a dry week. So they don't drink at all for a week. And obviously, like, I thought about doing this on a podcast, but I really didn't want to do it. So like 3 days was the buffer where I could do like Wednesday, not drink Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday.
So just drink on podcast night.
Yeah, I could do that, but so I didn't. So I had 1 pour on Sunday. That was it, right? And then, but I had a mojito, and like a Knob Creek at Texas State Brazil.
Mm-hmm.
How'd you do over there?
I
Like a champion.
smashed food.
Was it on green?
They stopped coming. I'll say that.
You do the little chicken hearts?
I kept it on green and they stopped coming.
Good for you, man.
You know, yeah.
But anyways, what I'm saying is
Have you heard of Sober October?
no, I haven't.
So Joe Rogan does this with his buddies, and they do Sober October. So he smokes weed, drinks. A few of his comedian friends do more than that, and they do a whole month. They do a workout challenge, and then they also do no alcohol. So no alcohol, no weed, no drugs, no cigarettes, no cigars for a whole month, and then they also have a workout challenge. And it's a way for them to completely refresh themselves. Some say they slept better, some say they had more vivid dreams. And then they kind of do like a weight loss challenge, stuff like that with it. That's so kind of what you're doing is kind of what they're doing on a larger scale.
It's like Lent. Basically, we're in the middle of Lent right now, and that's the same thing. You give up something for 40 days.
Yep.
And it's to prove you can do it. And, you know, obviously in the religious side of it, it's because Jesus did this and yada, yada, yada. You know, it's like one of those things that you do it out of a dedication side of it.
Do you do it?
I used to when I was religious. I'm not anymore. So
What did you give up?
Just, I mean, a lot of times what I did were the typical things, especially as a kid or, you know, early 20s. It was like you give up something you love. You know, it's one of those things. So fitting now, if I were to do it, it would be like I'm going to give up cigars for 40 days. I'm going to give up drinking or just drinking whiskey or whatever it might be. But a lot of times it's I'm going to give up sweets. I'm going to give up dessert. I'm going to give up, you know, I'm going to give up, it's usually food.
I got a buddy who gave up Crown. Just Crown.
Crown oil.
Crown oil.
He must have really loved
He
Crown.
doesn't have a problem.
Because if you start drinking another whiskey,
that's
then
like Crown is like you guys with whiskey. So imagine if you just couldn't have whiskey or scotch.
But
or
Crown
Jameson
is a
or
whiskey,
anything.
so
well, no, I'm saying he drinks the Crown like you guys drink
bourbon.
I get that, and it's like, but that's where it's like, all right, so I'm drinking beer that month.
Right.
You know what I mean?
But it's for him, it's his own personal struggle.
And I get that, and that's part of the Lent thing, and that's again, it's the Ray says Jacob had a mojito. Yeah, he did actually.
I don't know what the question is like for.
Because you're not a rum guy, you're a whiskey guy. That's not he doesn't think you're a cocktail guy. But he's trying to prepare himself for his Cuba trip when it happens. So
You going to Cuba?
it's in the works.
I'm really planning for October.
There you go, man.
I'm really planning for October. So
My thing is that I like that strategy, and I think you bring up a good point with the Joe Rogan thing with the Sober October. I think that's one way to do it. But again, that's one time of a year, and it's 1/12 of a year.
Do you think Lent's
So the
like a way to
majority-
refocus? Kind of
I think
re-spring into it?
it's part of that. I think it's translated to that. I mean, obviously there's some, and I'm not going to get into it as much, but to my knowledge of my recollection is correct from when I was more serious about religion. It was because Jesus was doing the 40 days, 40 nights in the desert, and he didn't do certain things, and that's where.
Essentially, in the Jewish religion, so you got Passover, so you
Correct.
don't eat unleavened things for a week. So
That's right.
I think different religions have a different way to kind of reset your body.
Well, in like the Catholic Church, it's like you can only have fish, you can't have meat, on Fridays and whatever day it is. And
for the longest time, I didn't realize why these places were doing like fillet of fishes and things like that. Now
Catholics.
I get it. Yeah.
Can I say? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, so for me though, that's my whole point. It's the same thing with the springtime thing. The challenge for me is that it's as you do things, again, relationships, you do something like our podcast, I look at it as you want to have that continued success in a career, in a venture that you're doing, everyday life. If you need that reset button, that's part of it.
Mm-hmm.
But realistically, for me, like doing something for 30 or 40 days out of 365, it's a great exercise. But for me, it's what about halfway through that?
Yeah.
Month 5 and 6 when you're hitting that rut, or if you're getting to like month 10 and you got to make it through month 11 to get to that point. How do you do that year round? Because you're avoiding the obvious, is that it's going to hit you, and it's like the same thing. I'm going to start my diet on Monday. So I'm going to start working out on January 2nd. But it's December 15th, so fuck that. I'm gonna drink, I'm gonna sleep, and then I'm gonna eat whatever the fuck I want and put on another. My challenge is to put 5 pounds on a Tuesday.
Done.
Yeah.
I did that Sunday.
Challenge accepted.
I did that twice on Sunday.
So we talk about this since the very beginning on the podcast of the balance. We talk about that all the time. We haven't talked about it quite as much lately. But I think it always pokes its head, but it's not the blatant conversation. So for me, keeping it fresh, and this wasn't part of my my mental notes, but it's something that as you're going through that, it's great if you need that reset button. But if you're gonna do that, come out of that reset button with a new plan. Don't just revert back to your old ways. For Jake's point, when I'm talking about when he's referring to the whole taking like 3 days off. We've had the conversation where the social life, and I'm telling you, as it gets warmer and everything else, we're going to do more nights outside smoking cigars. That's going to bring out a bottle. That's going to do that stuff, and it's going to be just something that you enjoy. It's not necessarily, in my opinion, honestly, it's not an addiction. It's not something that it's like we need that drink. It's just literally like, man, it's fucking gorgeous out. What do you want to do? And it's like, well, you want to come over to the garage? You want to come over to the patio? Do you want to sit at the shop? You want to do something? He's like, let's smoke a cigar and do this because that's our time together. It's a hobby. It's a lifestyle type thing. And then it's like you have these things, like my softball nights that are coming up, right? Tomorrow we have a first night out where we're going out.
Have you hit the cages?
No, we're going to hit the field, though, tomorrow night. So it's like we're not playing, but it's like getting the guys out on tomorrow night.
Are you going to be by Green Lawn?
No, I'm not playing. That's on Wednesdays. They needed subs tonight.
Those new fields are amazing.
Yeah, they needed subs tonight, but I'm doing this. So, but like tomorrow, it's going to start that season where it's like, all right, so we do the podcast in my life on Wednesdays, and I'm drinking for the podcast, or at the podcast, not for it, but partly for it, because we're reviewing it. But then it's like, then Thursday night, we go to the bar that sponsors us. We play softball, and then we have some beers at the bar and all this stuff, you know what I mean? So it's like, it's this lifestyle that I'm in that you're doing that stuff, but it's partly, it's going to be new again, it's going to be exciting, but then by the end of the season, it's like, I really don't want to go play softball because I'm tired. It doesn't matter what it is. That's where I'm saying, like, this is a personal struggle for me, so I'm actually opening this up to viewers and you guys at the table, is that how do you actually just continue to keep things fresh? How do you get out of that okay, once a year thing is great and all, but again, month 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, as you're getting back into that part where everything's going the same way, and spring hit and everything was fresh, now it's just like, oh fuck, it's 90 degrees out, it's summertime, it's July, God, it's miserable again. And it's like, it's sunny and miserable because I'm sweating, the bugs are out, like, oh God. Because it's like, people just get upset about it. The same people that complain about how cold it is, complain about how hot it is. It's like, what's the deal?
Well, let's
How do
get
you
one
do
thing
it?
straight, is people just like to bitch.
Okay.
But why?
Yeah.
Because they think that they feel better at it. I mean, I know I do it when I get super pissed, But it's like people just like to complain and they want to feel like, I'll give one example. Like the people that come into like the cemetery, and I don't always want to talk about the cemetery, but
I think it's interesting.
But the people,
I agree.
But I don't want to talk about it every podcast, and I have been since I worked there. But the people that come in and want to tell me like their whole life story about what's happened to them and what's going on, that's great, and I'm courteous enough that I'll listen. But then they'll complain about something that is very, very small.
Yeah.
That is either out by their mother's gravesite or their relative's gravesite, and make a big deal about it because they want the attention.
Okay.
And I think that for the people that are doing that, they either don't have enough attention in their life, and they're already pissed off either on the drive over, and then something sets them off, and then they're like, if everything's not perfect, if every blade of grass is not fucking mowed by that gravesite, I'm going straight to the top.
Okay.
And it's like, and that's fine, I guess, in your own way, but you can't do that every time something bugs you. And with, like for me, especially the whole, like keeping things fresh and how, like the struggle of that.
Right.
I think it really goes back to, well, are you comfortable? Do you feel comfortable? Do you feel like you're going through the motions? Are you excited about anything?
Yeah.
And for most people, when they feel that way, there's either nothing to look forward to, or they're stuck in their ways, or something's bogging them down, right? Or something that I thought about, it's we talked about the lower end where, people look at what we're doing kind of as a negative thing. I don't think so, but
I think less and less as we do it longer.
Yeah, but for the people that are in the light of a positive light, like you're very strict, like you meal prep on Sunday and you eat these designated meals twice a day for 6 days of the week, and you have one cheat day a week. Well, and you're working out 2.5 hours a day, and you're putting massive strain on your body, like what I did with powerlifting and stuff, and you're fighting through aches and pains. Well, for me, the winter, the day that like it snowed a lot and we couldn't get to the gym, I was like, great, that's my day to rest. So at least for the Midwest, my idea of it is that, okay, we're in the season where we can kind of go back on our weight because we're wearing the puffy shirts, the puffy clothes and stuff like that. You actually have like a real excuse not to go to the gym because literally it's not safe to go to the gym. But I think the people that are very strict with their diet, very strict with their weightlifting, I think they need a break too.
Absolutely.
And they don't allow themselves to have a break. And that's where your body breaks down. That's where you're mentally just drained. And you can't enjoy life. You're just engulfed in this fitness world that you can't even enjoy what you're actually looking at in the mirror.
Fair enough.
I agree with Jake. I think it's important to have things to look forward to. You guys.
That was a weird way to go about that.
Yeah, no, I had to get out of there, man. So it's important to have events, where it's concerts, whether it's trips, whether it's family events, whether it's Easter, opening day, whatever it is. But I think it's important to have things to look forward to throughout the year. Otherwise, you're right, you can't get in. A Tuesday is a Tuesday is a Tuesday is a Tuesday.
Yep.
But if you have things to look forward to, you get your Cuba trip, you got things like that. I think it's real important to have those types of goals, stuff that you're working towards, and just to keep going. Not just the once a year thing, but to have different things to look forward to. Not just on the personal level, fitness and making sure you look good in your shirts and things like that, but just taking pride in your property, taking pride being outside, having different projects to work out in the house, whether it's the floors or the back patio, whatever it is, having different things to work towards. But if you just get up and you go to work and you come home and you watch Netflix and whatever, that's a bad way.
What are you doing there, Spence?
To live your life.
Actually, I think we've all been there.
Yeah.
With that, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point. I think that's actually a great piece of advice to keep things fresh, is to do things that you enjoy and make it a point to do that all year round.
And to get out of your comfort zone.
That's the challenge for a lot of people, myself included.
It's a challenge, and you're a man of routine, and most of us are. Mm-hmm. But to do stuff that you don't normally do, to go places that you don't normally go, to not just go to the same 3 or 4 places, to not hang out with the same people, to take a different ride back home, something as simple as that, have a conversation with somebody you would never have a conversation with. Things like that could really kind of break up your day, break up the monotony of just normal day-to-day life.
Oh yeah, I mean, so Sunday I went to Blackwing shooting range up in Delaware/Marysville, right? So to get there from here, and I haven't been shooting in quite some time. It's probably been 6 to 8 years I've been shooting any firearms. So I went up with Nate, who's been on here a lot, several times, and then Brian Joyce from Tinderbox. We went up to Blackwing, and I really enjoyed that experience. But one of the things, to your point, Spencer, that I actually took a lot from and made me want to get a motorcycle again, it was...
You would look great on a motorcycle.
I know. But, I mean, thank you, no. But it was taking that drive to the other side of Columbus and going up to Sawmill, which I used to go to several times a week when I worked out at the Worlds over there, right, with a friend, and then went down Riverside. I'm noticing that the river is so high from the rains we had on the Saturday the day before, and I remember riding one of my old bikes down Riverside, or up Riverside, right, so you're going north, and it had that drive, and I'm smoking a cigar, and I'm just really enjoying it, and that was something that it took me back out of my comfort zone. It's like a comfort zone. Yeah, it's out of my daily routine. And there was a part of me that I wanted to tell Nate, hey, I don't really feel like going up there today. I'm going to back out. But I, told him I would, and I was looking forward to it when I told him I would. And I'm like, you know what, let's do it, but whatever. And I was really happy I did. And that's something that, I'm not saying I'm going to do it every Sunday. I'm not that passionate about it, but it's if he asked me again and I was free, absolutely, I'll go up there.
Half the battle's showing up. Half the battle's just doing it.
It's doing it.
You know that once you're there, you're going to be happy that you went there.
I think it's really, I know you're saying that as just a saying, but I think I think there's a big majority of the percentage of doing something that if, instead of backing out because you're tired or because you don't feel like doing it, I think if you open yourself up to the benefits of doing something different or doing something that it's not a bad thing. It's not that you're uncomfortable doing it because you're unsure of what you're doing. It's you're uncomfortable doing it because you'd rather take a nap or you'd rather do something that you enjoy. It could be like cleaning your own house. I'd rather just clean my house my day off than go and waste a whole day is the way some people's minds work, and mine's worked that way before. There's times, we've talked about with doing the podcast, softball, same thing. It's a fun thing to do, but at a certain point, after you do it long enough, you're just like, God, I'd rather not have, it's Wednesday, we got the podcast tonight. I haven't felt like that in a while, but there was a time in the first year that I was like, man, I really don't feel like doing it tonight.
Don't feel like doing the podcast.
Just don't feel like having people over, doing the podcast, I just want to hang out, do anything else other than that.
Yeah.
But it's once you do it, you enjoy it. I mean, that's that thing is I remind myself, and I encourage everyone to do the same, is that you remind yourself to take the time to Spencer, you don't smoke cigars like we do.
No.
But when you do, especially over here, you're smoking the whole time. You switch over to the other cigar. You're kind of listening to how you feel about the cigar, the smoke, and everything else. You don't have
different than the other one, by the way.
Very different. But so I'm combining in a sense that being actively present from last week and also keeping things fresh. Yeah. When you put your entire self into whatever you're doing or what you intend on doing, it won't get as mundane because you're not going through the motions anymore. I think you're actually trying to experience something and you're putting everything you have into it. And by doing that, I think combining last week's topic and conversation, if you guys haven't listened to that, go back and listen to that. Because when you combine that with this mentality of trying to keep things fresh, springtime weather coming is almost like a forceful way of just waking people up.
Yeah.
It's do that consistently and realize the benefits that you're getting out of it. And we talked about it last week, what you get out of it and what every party that's involved gets out of it if you're giving your 100%.
How long does it feel like you guys have been doing this?
There's different for
Not
me.
long enough.
Yeah, not long, and other times
Does
a
it feel
lot.
like it's been over a year? Or does it feel like 5 years? Does it feel like a couple months?
No, I think it feels like a couple months to me.
Yeah.
You guys look forward to it every once in a while?
No, I do again. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, are you talking about the times we were arguing, like, or what do you?
No, I'm saying
Those were the best episodes. I go back.
Yeah, no. For me, it was just.
Well, you're like hosting it, so I guess like it's.
I'm not.
It's
At the house.
It's
yeah.
your
You're
house, so it's a
literally-
little different because you have to deal with the aftermath.
No, I think it was. It's not even the aftermath. It's the fact that there's some days you don't feel like going into work. You know what I mean? You just don't feel it. Same thing. This started becoming that way for me a little bit because I mean sometimes it was like we were trying to feel it. You know, we're trying to feel it out, and we didn't know what we were doing with it all the time consistently. So it was like leading into that Wednesday. Wasn't feeling it. Wasn't really. Sure what we were going to talk about. Like, Jake said it tonight, and I mentioned it earlier, is that we didn't really have a concrete topic last night. We didn't have a whiskey. We didn't really have a cigar. So it was like, we got Spencer coming on, which is always, I mean, I'm not blowing smoke up your skirt. I'm saying, like, it's always a treat having someone on that can hold a genuine conversation. And I said it, I don't know if I've said it on the podcast, but I explained it to other people. When I talk about Spencer, I think when I first talk to Jake about Spencer, is like, you have someone there that you're in sales, you've been bred into the family business, and I've never met your dad, but I can only imagine that a lot of the characteristics that you have gotten from that I observed you've gotten from him, in a sense that like for better, like not 100%, but like but it's this genuine conversation. So when you've been on the podcast, you have conversational skills. When we go out to like dinner and stuff like that, it's always genuine comments. It's these well thought out questions that are conversation pieces that if they're fake, you're good at it. But knowing you as long as I've known you, it's something that like when we don't talk for months at a time, and then we get back together, it's just a very genuine conversation on both sides of it, and it's genuine interest in what the other person's doing, and that's that actively being present side of it.
Yeah.
And so it's like when you do that, when we don't see each other, or when you're not on the podcast, so Jake's not seeing you either, it's when you get back in the garage and you get back on the podcast, there's a lot of just that, there is that freshness, there's that genuinely like active conversation there. There's questions, there's interest.
Well, I think I already know what I know. But I don't know what you guys are going to say. Like, I already know my point of view on things, so I try to expand my mind a little bit and figure out where your guys' heads are at. And that's why I think it's good that you guys have a bunch of different types of people, and I could, show up. I think it's interesting when you guys have different types of people.
Yeah.
The conversation you had last week.
You listen every week.
I do listen every week. And the conversation you had, who was the fitness guy who does... Grant. So that was a completely different conversation than any other conversation.
Absolutely, yeah.
I'm rocking the Noctera shirt. That was the guy that you had who does the coffee. My buddy has a stake in Noctera, so you add the coffee, kind of brings it together.
Yeah.
So I think it is important to have different types of people
Yeah.
all across the board, and hopefully you guys will continue to do that. And I know you're having some cigar guys and things like that, but completely outside the box people that here's a conversation that I would never have a conversation with a guy like Grant, but I knew a lot more about him after this, and now I want to have a conversation with a guy like that.
Well, and that's the thing too, where that's why I was pretty adamant about it when we were starting this, was that I was so anti like script, like anything, like any type of format. I just didn't even want it because I just wanted it.
You wanted to hit record, I remember.
I was literally like, let's just hit record and see what happens. And then, my reasoning behind it was because I just wanted it so raw. And even if we did have new people or different or the same people on, it would just be different because no one says the same shit twice most of the time. And it's just always fun that way. Like, look, like you've been on here 5-6 times, Spencer, and every time you have a different question. You never have the same question, and you actually listen. Like, if you're a true listener and a true viewer, you will know, and I'm sure you've already figured out, the last like 5 episodes or so, they've literally cascaded on each other.
Absolutely.
Was that planned or no?
No. But it's just the way that we think, and it's the way that we've actually created it, and that's what I like about it, because it's so raw that we're actually just making ourselves better.
And on the side of that, though, too, is that we talked about it before the podcast, and Jake, the only structure we've had recently, we still try to stick to our product, if you will, like, our content of whiskey, cigars, life topic. But then the one thing that we looked at as running this podcast, and what we think would benefit the content that people are intaking, is try to keep the reins on the conversation, right? So like right now we're getting to the 2-hour point. So the only tweak we did was we tried to, like, really, again, last week, again, I keep bringing it up as being actually present. It's like actually enjoy the content ourselves, as opposed to trying to put out content, but actually get something from it, but also keep it in that kind of timeline where it's like we could talk all night, and typically we do. When we hit stop on the podcast and on the live, the conversation continues. But as far as what we're getting out of it is that one of the ways I think we've succeeded with that recently is that we've had more to say, and the conversation could go another hour. But it's like now it's like we've made our point, and now it's like let's feed into next week.
Now that the weather's
everyone.
Now that the weather's a little nicer and people are out a little later, people might be cutting their lawns at 7:30 at night. You guys given any consideration starting off a little later?
Well, now I'm
Put
looking
their kids
at
to bed, all
our
that
conversation about, like what I said earlier, that we had that extra hour. I mean, we've had more viewers in the last 20 minutes at a certain time than we did 20, 30, 40, 50 minutes ago.
Something to think about.
We're at 9:15 right now, so at that 8 o'clock moment, families are still doing what they're doing. Now that it's nice out, kids might be out playing, whatever it might be, running kids around. Now we're floating around the double digits again, where it's like, all right, now people are actually sitting down,
hanging out.
This is the end of the day, because it's been light all the way up until not too long ago. So now they're actually sitting down, calming down, and tuning in.
Yeah, we could do that. Look, like, I'm going to start off like the closing remarks, and in flipping the script, kind of, I was thinking of the people that have these regimens that aren't comfortable, that are making sure that they are always uncomfortable being comfortable, or they're comfortable being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
That used to always be my saying when I was
it's a good saying.
Really big on the lifting standpoint. But thinking on the podcast in general, like when you're trying to keep things fresh and you're, thinking about, how can you stay relevant? That's what I think about when Steve says, like, keeping things fresh. Because honestly, like, before we hit record, I didn't even know what I was going to talk about. And that's why, frankly, I didn't want to do this topic. But
it's not the first time you said that either.
Steve's idea.
Well, it was your idea because he asked you, and then he wanted to go with it. In the middle of the day, he's kind of like, well, so, like, springtime, keeping things fresh. I'm like, yeah, I don't really know what we're going to say. And then it was kind of like, okay, yeah, we're doing it, I guess. So, and there's no offense to me. I don't care, because I'm going to figure out my way through it. But keeping things fresh, I think it's also about a competition of being relevant, where we added springtime into our title, and we were talking about springtime. Well, that's relevant because it literally is springtime.
Correct.
And it's coming into an effect, especially in Midwest Ohio and Midwest, United States, where you're, seeing people get out. It's lighter later, and, people are out and doing things. And it's great, but really when you're talking about, like, keeping things fresh, I think it's just being relevant. Because if you're just doing the same old shit, if you have, like, I think of the podcasts that I actually enjoy, that I think it would be cool to have, like, Steve and I's, like, voices on his, like, professional mic that he has, and do, like, a pre-recorded intro. Like, yeah, that would be cool, but it's not us. And I think it comes down to, for me, is just for a second, if you just gave yourself time to be spontaneous. Like, it's like today, like, traffic was messed up on 670.
As always.
Instead of going to 270, I went into Gehenna and got off some weird road that I didn't know.
And you showed up early.
And got lost, and I showed up early. But I got lost, and I found my way back to, like, Morris Road, and, like, got home.
Yeah.
I was pissed off because it took more time, but it was just a different change of pace.
Yeah.
I just think of that song like Back Road. Who was that by? The country song. Or
I'm thinking of Love You on the Back Road, but that's about something else.
Yeah, that's different.
Yeah.
Anyways, it's just
song.
No, it's about Roadhead, but I don't think that's what you were talking about.
no. All I'm saying, and here's a metaphor for you: just take the back road sometimes.
Yeah, I know what song you're actually talking about.
You know what I mean? Like it's just, and it goes with all aspects of life. Like if you're working out all the time, just take a fucking break for once in a while.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not working out all the time, maybe start something new because it's lighter out. You're feeling better. You feel a little bit more energy. You have a little bit more vitamin D in your system. You want to look better. You have a little bit more motivation. Do something about it. But it's also the same people they've worked the same job for 40 years. They drive the same route to work. They work the same 9 hours. They drive the same route home. And then they watch TV for an hour. And then they go to bed and bitch about what their day was. And then they wake up and do it all over again.
Right.
And then they get hammered on the weekends. And then expect things to be different the next week. And it's like, well, okay, how's your perspective on things? Shitty.
Yeah.
Okay, so how are you expecting a different outcome if your perspective on it is shitty? And it goes back to my first statement is if it's a mind thing, if it's an inner feeling, you're not driven, you're feeling down, you don't have any motivation. Okay, so what's going to motivate you? Is there something there that's going to change your viewpoint or your goal? Is there something that you really, really want to do? I look at farther than the face value of what we're actually talking about.
Right.
Because I don't think it's just about the fucking weather. I think, especially for me, it's really about what's going on in my life. Who am I interacting with? Am I making what I want to make, as in salary-wise? Is there issues with my job? Is there something wrong with my card? I have to pay my taxes next week. Is there something there that's going to mess up? How am I going to pay my mortgage? Stuff like that.
Yeah.
And if you just take it step by step, while also adding some like spontaneousness in there, we had that topic, spontaneity, a long time ago.
Yeah.
And I think at the core, that's my biggest point is like, just take the back road sometimes.
I like it.
Like, Jesus, what's wrong with that?
Nothing.
So, Spencer?
Cool way to transfer over to me, man.
Mic drop.
Yeah.
Spencer, you want to pick that up?
Yeah, so as far as taking the back roads,
So there I was.
So there I was on the back roads.
No idea.
Wild and wonderful West Virginia.
I woke up naked in the field again.
That was a great time.
That was a weird Tuesday.
That was a great time.
I'm glad you guys were there with me, though.
Yeah. It's a long Uber ride.
You should have seen Steve fall last week. That would have been funny.
Yeah, that didn't happen.
About scared the shit out of me, but I helped you.
Yeah, you were there.
So
Thank God.
So I know Crane wanted to keep it a little light, so hopefully this was a little bit.
Get deep.
No, I'm not going to try to get too deep. It's a beautiful day outside. The Indians, the Cubs started, so that's kind of my way
Cubs
to
are
get
winning right now, I assume, because Brad Grimsley, who was here last week,
Is he a pitcher? Relief?
No, yeah, he might have back in the day.
Sounds like he could be a relief pitcher for the Cubs.
Yeah.
Sidewinder.
Submariner. Go on.
You're talking a little bit about new beginnings things. I'm just going to kind of refer to the surroundings. So, in a beautiful new house that Crane has bought, that I know over the years you've always wanted, a house, and it's a big deal to buy a house.
Yeah.
It's a big deal to change the podcast setting, and I feel like this will be a good spot for it. This podcast is kind of giving me a wake up call to kind of get out of some of the ruts that I've been in, and to kind of refocus on things. Not to use your phrase, but
Use away.
When you do type in that focus, sometimes it does kind of be like, oh man, I should do something else today. But the sun's shining. We're gonna have some flowers here soon. Indians has started. It's all good right now, man. Spring.
Indians is a baseball team.
You're really going on this like 2019 thing, aren't you? Goodness.
But overall, I'm happy with new beginnings. I'm happy with spring, and this coming in spring, coming with Easter, with Passover coming up, with opening day, all this stuff. It does kind of give you an opportunity to, push out all the negativity of winter, push out all the negativity of cold weather to the side, and start fresh. So everyone, I'm sure, did some sort of New Year's resolution. Some people held it, some people didn't. But now that spring's kind of happened, we kind of can refocus and kind of get back at it. So just want to thank you guys again for having me on. I did enjoy the burning chair. I thought it was definitely unique, definitely worth the try. The first cigar I thought was immaculately constructed. I think this HP Upmann, the teal, is what I remember. I had this several, have had a few months ago, and it is completely different than the first one, but very, very delicious. But again, thank you guys, appreciate it. 61 episodes. Hopefully you all don't take it for granted. Hopefully you guys still look forward to coming to this every weekend, because I know I look forward to listening to it.
No, I know I do, and I appreciate what you said about everything, about the podcast, about your comments, about the cigars and whiskey. I mean, it's something. Jake, thanks for bringing the burning chair tonight.
Yeah, hope you guys enjoyed it.
I think it was great. With the cigars, the Sobremesa, Steve Saka, I haven't seen him tune in, but if it reaches Steve, I want to thank you. That Sobremesa is fantastic and it's great. I've met him before briefly, but having a long conversation with him yesterday, it was a fantastic thing. Everything that you hear about someone that's been in an industry, that's been an industry player for a long time, and if you're passionate about whatever it might be, if you meet that person, we talk about baseball a lot. It's like someone that played baseball, coached, whatever it is. We talked about football, a lot of podcasts, with Jake's career and everything else. When you meet someone and talk to someone that's just absolutely pure in their comments and their education by fire, a lot of times, you get a lot from it. So that Sobremesa, I really did enjoy. And Tinderbox, thank you at Easton for providing that, because again, we couldn't do this every week without all that.
No.
And then Altadis USA, the H. Upmann, which is behind Jake if you're watching on YouTube or watching live.
It's this way, yeah.
That's it. It's that way. This one's been an all-star. That's one of the reasons that if you do something medium body, full body, this thing stands up as a follow-up cigar. So we appreciate that. I want to say with the topic at hand, I actually learned a lot from the conversation and going into it. Like Jake always, not always says, but frequently says that he didn't know what he was going to say, or he didn't care for the topic, didn't know what he was going to contribute to the topic, and then every week he contributes a shit ton. And then our guest, Spencer, being here, every time, we've already kind of talked about it, I really pushed it because I believe in it, is that there's a genuine conversation coming from someone on the other end of the table here that doesn't matter what the topic is, and Spencer could just be the question guy and more or less run the conversation in a sense that there's this genuine interest that while he's in front of you, and I can guarantee anyone listening out there that's the way it is no matter what it is. As he learns more about you, this is someone that you would like to have in your corner, because when shit hits the fan, which is a topic, when you just want to go relax and do something, this is an individual that absolutely is going to do what we talked about last week, which is be actively present in that experience, in that conversation, and there's a lot of lessons to be learned from that. And when I look at the keeping things fresh, I love the springtime for a lot of reasons, and it's because it reminds me, like it does a lot of people, that you are going to have new opportunities, like you have the extra hours of the day, if you will. You have a different perspective on life. So anything that has been something where it's dragging on and it's like snow, and then it looks like it's going to get warm, and then you have snow again, and it's like rain again, and it's like, and if you're in the Midwest or you're a lot of the parts of the country now in the U.S. and different parts of the world, it's like as soon as you think that, 5 years ago, this is how it always was, we'd hit a new season, and then it's like, this season's not ending because I looked at the 5-day forecast and we're still in it. It's great today, but it's going to be rainy or snowy or whatever it might be. It's that constant reminder for me that when you actually are complaining, like what Jake was saying, you have this person that does the same thing over and over again. There are certain individuals, and it's actually a minority in my opinion, that they do the same thing day in, day out, and they're a creature of habit to the 100% level where it's like that's what makes them happy. But as soon as you start complaining about it, as soon as you start seeking out those escapes, that's that reminder that you actually have to do something different and you have to keep things fresh. And so for me, that's my biggest challenge, and I put that out to you guys also, is that if you're feeling that way, that, you know, I had this new house, I'm moving, we had this busy month, we were smoking tenant, we talked about it, we started this podcast a year ago. It's like when you have these new ventures, it's great. I'm only a month into this new house and it's already starting to, like, you know, there's, oh yeah, I need to do this, but I'm tired, and we're comfortable in this side of the house, so just don't go into that part of the house.
Don't go to that room.
Yeah,
don't need to go to that room.
It was like the basement. I couldn't get any furniture down there. That was supposed to like be an entertainment room, but it's like
more of a folding chair place.
Yeah. So it's like I couldn't get any furniture down there. Now it's like I got a bar down there that's not even stocked because it's like, no, I got bottles in the kitchen.
It's a good place to play darts.
We're fine.
Yeah.
We're fine. So I encourage everyone, and I have this struggle all the time, is that I want to stay hungry. We had that, stay positive, stay hungry, all that stuff. I think that's a lot of it with keeping things fresh is something that we do need to actually seek out. What are you laughing about?
I was thinking of Hitch, where he's like, no need to make a pizza, they got food there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right here.
Yeah.
Right here. This is where you stay.
Yeah.
Where you live.
Yes, exactly.
No, I encourage everyone to get out of their comfort zone. I think that was a big thing from Jake tonight, is that you know, getting out of your comfort zone, taking the back road. I love that metaphor, because that actually will apply to every part of your life, career, relationship.
And I hate our metaphors lately.
You guys had
just so many.
A couple weeks ago, there was a lot of metaphors.
Dude, the
was all
duck
metaphors.
one. The freaking duck one.
That one was...
I think we had 20 metaphors.
That was a hard shoe to listen to.
Spencer, if you
metaphors.
didn't get it, you didn't get it.
No, I got it. There's a lot of ducks. I think there's a bald eagle reference at some point. But
Probably about
there was a fisherman.
Yeah, there was it was
a lot of water.
Not as many similes as I'd like, but
We
a
got-
lot of metaphors.
It was like
English
no.
lesson. Yes.
Like or as.
Yeah, I know what a simile is.
Like her ass.
So-
I love that.
No, I enjoy the topic tonight. I think we had a good conversation. I thank you, Spencer, and I thank you, Jake, for bringing a lot to it, because it is something that a lot of people struggle with. This is a time of the year that you need to continue all year round.
I want to make it known I didn't like this episode.
That's fine. It's good. That's a good plug. We'll use that as a soundbite.
It was a joke.
We edit that?
Yeah, no, I'm actually going to just highlight that.
No, I didn't.
I didn't like this subject. Tune in next week.
Yeah. It's a joke. I don't know how to joke.
Close it out then.
I don't know how to joke people. I'm sorry. Anyways, thank you, Tinderbox at Easton, for providing the Sobremesa, Steve Saka, amazing cigar, the Corona size. Please come in. You get 15% off on that cigar. And thank you, Altadis USA, for providing the H. Upmann, AJ Fernandez, Nicaraguan. Great cigar. I love this cigar. I think we all really like both the cigars this evening. I think this bottle, the Burning Chair, is, again, one of those bottles that if you want to spend $50 on something that's interesting, go do it. It's readily available here in Central Ohio. I got this at Arena Wine and Spirits in downtown off of High Street. If you're in New Albany, Gahanna area, it's at 1837 regularly. And thank you, BS Cigar Company, Brian and Steve. Can't wait to light up my BS Gold. I don't have two to match the Toro, but I can't wait. I've been itching away at getting the Toros back and the big ones back. But we can't wait. So thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Thank you, Spencer, for tuning in. You're a great listener, actively being present. Happy Whiskey Wednesday, Bourbon BS Podcast. Cheers.